the roll call. Ramsey's president is here. Jacqueline, Senator Brett, VP Academic External. VP DFO is here. Amy Shanahan, VP Supervisor is here. Jen, president of the committee. Yvonne Materia, the member of large is here. Aaron Beal, member of large is here. Senator is here. Okay, so Ali Caroline, the senator, is not present. And so if I read from Section 19 of Union Rules of Procedures Policy, there, from Section 19, let me expand this. Sorry. Section 19, it says that non-executive members of the council may appoint a proxy to attend and vote at meetings of council on his or her behalf, provided they have given written notice to the chair, including the name of the proxy, no less than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. The proxy is a member of the same constituency as a member of council, and the proxy is signed a statement of office document. Now, I understand that there is an individual here from the same constituency as Alex Casey's namely student. And there's no issue between the signing of the statement of office document. The issue is that I received notice from I received notice from the less than 24 hours. Then what was required. And so in the past I have taken that requirement that I've enforced, but I mean, I understand that it's in the interests of wholesome student representation that we have all seats filled, so to speak, through every council. So normally I wouldn't put this on council, but I'm just wondering if anyone has any thoughts on how they would like the chair to proceed in terms of recognizing proxies if there hasn't been like a 24-hour notice. Because this is not the first time it's happened, and I suspect it won't be the last. But I want to maintain some consistency here. And so, given in the past that I haven't recognized those proxies and haven't given notice, perhaps maybe I'll just see if anyone has any opinion whether or not they would like this 19 days to be strictly enforced. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Proxy. Well, I think that if you're already here, I wouldn't be too strict on it, especially if it is volunteering time to be here and proceed with the meeting as if Allie were here. So I wouldn't be strict. I wouldn't make sure that this was a stand forever rule. But anyone disagrees?
Yes.
Also, that timeline is usually used to confirm that the student who's being sent as a proxy is of the same constituency. Since Allie's position as the student senator, all students are her constituency, so as long as the proxy is a Dow student, which is really easy to check, I think the shorter timeline can be accepted.
Yes.
It also is a pretty busy time of year for most people, so Allie's could have just been, it's understandable that it was like more than 24 hours in my own mind, because it's such a crazy time of year for a lot of academic reasons.
So I just want councilors to understand that if anyone wants to raise a point of order that the procedure has been followed, I would rule on that point of order, notwithstanding the fact that I'm going to pass statement of office to, and please remind me of your name, Scott. Scott. I'll ask you to read that before you sign it. It outlines the responsibilities of these councilors. So I just want to remind everyone of the requirements. I'll recognize Scott for the purposes of this meeting, notwithstanding the fact that it's an irregular procedure. However, it still remains open to anyone to raise a point of order on that point. So if everyone's satisfied, then I'll continue with the roll call. I see William.
I'm just wondering how this reflects on the responsibility of the counselor to proxy, because presumably it should be their responsibility for proxy in the manner that's specified within the prosecution timeline.
John?
I can say in Ellie's particular case, she has an exam tonight. I think it's pretty forgivable that the council has not been her highest priority. Like, I have a midterm tomorrow. I'm kind of regretting coming here, but I mean, such is life.
Yes, I see a hand in the corner.
Yeah, I think midterms are definitely a valid reason that tomorrow my third midterm in 3 days, but I'm here and I think you probably know ahead of time that you have a midterm, so I don't think 24 hours is unreasonable.
Okay, so see, if there's no
Further discussion, continue with the roll call. Taylor Quinn, Senator. Is anyone over Taylor?
He has class until.
Oh, right,
I know
no,
it. Of course. No, I know that. And Gilman, Senator, is here. Andrew Bucci, Brad Senator is here. John Hutton, Rep is here. Rebecca Hayworth is here as well. Alexander McKillum, Women's Committee Rep is present.
Michael
Dave
Davis.
School, Accident Rep is here. Derek Rogers is eligible.
Is anyone over there?
He also has an exam.
Michelle Martin, Aboriginal Students Rep.
Anyone over Michelle?
She's actually, I think she's got an exam.
Al Kashaw, International Students Rep.
Okay,
Okay.
now
Now
we're in the
same
same
situation, aren't we?
I didn't receive any
Anyone on this from that?
I think he sent a mail yesterday and I was copied on it.
I don't believe you did. Do you say you're copied on?
Yeah.
Do you want to forward it to him right now?
Okay.
And the same reason applies, right? If anyone wants to raise a point of order, then I will rule on that point of order. But in the absence of that, and given what council told me, I'm prepared to ask individuals from the international student community
After she
to
sends
send
me
that email.
sign a statement of this form, which I will pass around. And what is your name, Miss?
I'm sure, yeah. I hope you get it.
So do you have a signed proxy form? Okay. Now this is a different situation, isn't it? I don't even know if Amber has properly allowed this individual to be part of council. So I don't know if at this time I'm prepared to recognize a proxy for Amber.
This is a different situation.
He sent you this, yeah.
So
I apologize, but Oliver knew the procedure for having proxies appointed, and he hasn't applied it. So let's move on with the roll call. Giovanni Kelly. Representative Rep. Joe, Section Campus Director. Caitlin Lewis, President is here. Christine Rankin, SFPI is here. Emilio President is here. Rogan Brothers is here. He is this rep. And President is here. Sydney Miller, Engineering Board Rep is here. We have a representative from the Architecture faculty. Yes, Aaron is here. Aaron Tito. Christopher Irving is absent. Computer Science Rep. McKinney Government Rep
is here.
So I apologize. If I miss any of you, I really don't want to do that. And Mayor Dunn, our purpose here. Jasmine, President Representative Brett. The other health professions representative positions vacant. I have Jennifer Hank for the Staples Rep. Welcome. We have, and I have a proxy form. And then your position is Thomas Charlotte here. Charlotte. President, Wayland, the medicine rep is here. Nazine Sultana is here, yes, I saw her. DAC president, and visual DAC is here.
Okay. Get started.
Get started. Sorry. Okay. Is there any business related to the agenda?
Sorry, give you out of order. Did I miss you make a call on the international students rep?
Yes.
Unfortunately, because I don't even have a proxy form, I unfortunately cannot recognize a proxy for our shop. Yes, no.
Did you get the email that you forwarded?
So the reason behind, as an individual indicated here, the reason behind requiring a proxy form to be signed 24 hours in advance is so that the chair can verify before the council meeting whether or not a student comes from the same constituency. And so, as an individual pointed out, all students are constituents, so to speak, of Allie's constituency, when she's a senator, right? So there would be no question whether or not a proxy for her is going to be a senator. And as I've already stated, I would recognize a point of order from councilors if they wish to challenge my leniency. But in the absence of that, this is how council is asking me to proceed in this regular manner, amending policy so to speak. And so, if there's no other questions on that or clarifications, then I'd like to move on to the agenda. Yes.
Have you received the email that you forwarded?
It was sent to your Gmail.
Gmail?
This doesn't get
around the proxy, right? It gets around the notice. It doesn't get around the sign process.
I understand.
Right, so, I mean, I see. It's very strange because I see that it was sent together Tuesday, October 21st, which was yesterday, but it's not in my inbox. So until 3 minutes ago. It's very interesting. So I don't. I'll rely on my previous comments. Let's get on.
Enjoy your night. We're all jealous.
So is there any business?
Okay. So is there any business related on the agenda?
Yes, William.
William.
Some motions which are forwarded by individual not present. And just are those motions going to be?
That's what I'm waiting for.
That's what I'm waiting for someone to put their hand up.
Like that, the Bob's numbers appointments?
Oh, yes.
So you want to add to the agenda the appointment of certain positions to the Board of Operations. Okay. And where would you put that in the agenda?
That would be after, yeah, included after the appointments and elections.
Okay.
Does that motion have a seconder? Is there any discussion on that? John?
Sorry, no, this isn't. Sorry, I have a different item. So once this item is finished, then.
Okay.
Yes.
I just have a question. Were those positions like public before today? Yeah.
And the nominating committee has recommendations.
So is there any further discussion whether or not to add these appointments to the agenda? Yes, yes.
What are we adding? I just didn't hear the.
Board of Operations members appointments. 2 non-executive members.
And these members were they went through the meeting. So is there any further discussion whether to add to the agenda? See none, whether or not to add these appointments to the agenda will require the 2/3 majority of council. So all those adding to the agenda, please raise your hand.
All those opposed?
Abstentions.
The motion
Carries. Are there any other items present on the agenda? Yes?
Like the presentation of the provost models around provost model.
Do we have a PowerPoint presentation to circulate to members?
We'll be bringing it on a USB.
Does that motion have a seconder? Dan? So this is a presentation from Carolyn Waters concerning what exactly?
Provost model.
Okay. And she perhaps I should ask if we have any discussion. Yes.
Is there any approximation on how long this presentation will take? Just because we do have a limit on time.
Yes, maximum 15 minutes.
Rebecca?
I just say that this was something that happened at the board meeting last night, so it'd be difficult to give the proper 24 hours notice. So this was like a change that happened last night, so I think it's important to hear about it yesterday.
So I just want councillors to understand that they'd be voting on a presentation that they haven't received any supporting documentation for. And a third of councillors can essentially block this presentation from happening. So is there any further discussion on how this agenda?
Rams, is she already coming?
Yeah, I think she's lost.
Motion to call the question?
Okay. Well, there's no other people on the speakers list, so we're going to vote whether to adopt this to the agenda. And again, it requires a majority of the points. All those in favor of adding this presentation to the agenda, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstentions? So motion carries. Yes, Caitlin.
Motion to table old business A, B, C, D, E, and F, and that's it. Because one of the people is not here to speak to the motion, and in interest of time, the council policy, commissioner policy, committee policy, and facility operations policy, and union procedures policy aren't exactly as time sensitive as the changes needed to elections policy, and we do lose this room at 9:30, and those can wait.
So this is an opportunity to explain procedure again. You're quite right that for items A and F, the individuals who were supposed to be speaking to those motions are not here. The way that it happens is that solicit individuals to take charge of those motions. In the absence of that, if no one wants to speak to them during business, then they're automatically tabled until the next meeting. Councillors do have the opportunity to take charge of the motion, take responsibility for speaking to them, for the purpose of either discussing them, having a floor, or perhaps they would motions as well. So at this time, I'll solicit any volunteers to take charge of any of the motions from A to F. Yes, Mr. Vance. Of all of them?
Yeah.
All of them?
I can't speak on A, so maybe B to F.
B to F?
Maybe take it.
I just want to mention that the A is something that there was discussion happening on it, and we didn't really get into the meat of it. And if we are worried about the interest of time, maybe we can push that next week. So I would be in favor of tabling that until next week.
Okay, well, right now we're just talking about B to F. So Rance has proposed to take care of those motions. Does that motion have a seconder? Yes, Scott. Thank you. So is there any further discussion on that? Like, would anyone else like to take care of those motions? Or is everyone comfortable with Rance? Okay, is anyone opposed to Rance taking care of these motions? I think that's all we don't need to vote. Okay, seeing as no one's opposed, I think Rance will speak close to the course. So would anyone like to take charge of Ali's motion about the council policy, or Jacqueline's motion concerning policy concerning sexism? Okay. Seeing as how no one is volunteering, then those will be automatically tabled until the next meeting. Is there any other business on the agenda? Yes, John.
Under new business, I put forward a motion around wage mark certification. I would like that to be under notice of motion instead of new business, please. So just noticing that it's happening, and that is all.
Okay. So essentially, you want to delete it from the agenda, and then you will bring it up at the notice of motion stage.
Yes, my motivation in noticing it to you before it was
Before we get into the merits, the motion needs a seconder.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying I want it to be run through the Board of Operations before we discuss it in council, which is why it was noticed.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that point? Seeing none, we'll have to vote whether or not to delete John's motion concerning wage mark certification of Tallahassee Student Union employees from the agenda. All those in favor, please raise their hands. All those opposed? Abstentions. Okay. Is there any other business rising out of the agenda? Yes, John.
I've got a motion in the new business item where I'm amending the section advisory committee, and there is a previous motion where we are approving the committee policy at the same time.
Yes.
So would it make sense having my motion before approving the committee policy, or?
You've brought up a very good point. I took the liberty of comparing those two motions, and none of the, there's only one change to the Sex and Campus Student Advisory Committee section of the committee policy, contained in the 90, right? And it's grammatical. And it doesn't interfere with any of your proposed amendments, so they're both in order, and I don't think it's necessary, well, unless you want to move it up, right? But you shouldn't feel like you need to move it up because they may conflict. That's what I would say. And that brings me to another point. Would anyone like to rearrange any of the agenda items, given that we have we have 3 presentations in topic? Or we can go with, because we have executive business to get through before the presentations and the appointments. So I don't want to hazard a guess.
I motion to put the presentations as soon as possible. I'm guessing after appointments? Or before appointments? What do you guys think? Before
after communications before that, or?
After communications, Steve, I guess.
Okay, does that motion have a seconder? Sorry,
I can't see it. Michael.
Discussion?
Anyone?
Yeah,
Rance.
May I request that maybe after, let's say, executive business, only because, now that we're here, maybe we'll give a bit more time to show up, and by the time
I should add, if they're not here by the time it comes up, then as they come in, then they'll, so to speak, see in the middle of your executive business, right? Then if they show up in the middle, their presentation will take place right after your conclusion of your executive business. Okay, so maybe I'll just ask, is anyone opposed to having the 3 presentations scheduled after communications received? Is there any further discussion on that? Yes, why don't you introduce her?
I'm Joe. I'm running for, or appointed for the Board of Operations. A lot of this stuff that's going on, I'm not a voting member. So as quickly as we can kind of get the appointments done, I'd be happier with that.
point of order?
Yes.
I think there was a discussion about my SAC policy amendments I had questions about, and you just moved on to another point, right? I didn't finish what I had to say.
I asked you if you wanted to move it up.
Yeah, but then I didn't answer it.
Okay, I apologize. So did you want to?
No, so I just want to clarify, so when we are approving the committee policy also approves the SAC policy within it. And then my motion is amending the SAC policy after that. So that was my concern. So does it make sense having the SAC policy amended first, and then approving the committee policy that includes the SAC policy?
But like I said, there's only one substantive change. There are no substantive changes to the SAC policy.
Okay.
There's only one grammatical change, okay? So both amendments are in order, and they don't conflict with each other. So if we approve the SAC portion in the committee policy first, and then your SAC policy amendments, then everything's fine. Right? There's no conflict. So that's what I would say. But you're still free to move it up in the agenda if that's what you want to do.
As long as everything's good, I'm good.
So right now we're still talking about the presentations after communications. Is there any further discussion at that point? And perhaps we'll have to vote, given that we've had an individual express skepticism. So we'll move to vote whether or not to move the presentations after communications received. All those in favor, please raise their hands. All opposed?
Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries.
Would anyone like their abstentions or dissents noted in the minutes? Okay. Is there any other business arising on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to vote whether or not to adopt the agenda as a whole. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Opposed?
Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, we have an agenda. Is there anything arising out of the minutes of October 8th? Is there anyone opposed to adopting the minutes and placing them on the website? Okay. So those who so excited. Communications received. So the presentation from Students Nova Scotia was submitted to the chair after the 48-hour deadline. The way that I see it, if there are any reports or presentations that are submitted to the chair after the deadline that council has requested, then they're automatically sent to council. Because I can assume that you don't need a vote in order to receive them, right? If it's presumed that you want them because you asked for it, then we don't need a vote. However, council never really requested Students Nova Scotia have a presentation, so there does need to be a vote whether or not to have the presentation circulated for the purposes of the board. Does everyone understand? Does anyone understand, like, what I just said? Because council didn't request the report, and because it was circulated after the deadline, council needs to have a vote at the meeting whether or not to have the report circulated. The presentation itself is scheduled for after it's actually the next item on the agenda. So now let's begin the discussion around receiving the presentation. If anyone is concerned that they didn't have enough time to look it over. Yes,
I have concern that we're having enough time. We're gonna have enough time to vote. But going to that.
Is there any further discussion?
So see now
we'll move to whether or not to have this report circulated, and it'll be circulated immediately after a vote. And it requires a 2/3 majority. So yes, sorry, Henry.
So are we voting on whether or not we want it circulated or if we want to have the presentation?
Circulated, because the presentation is on the agenda. I received notice of presentation, right?
So we're just
before the deadline, not the actual presentation itself.
okay.
Like I got the heads up that this was going to happen, but I never actually had to follow up the presentations. That's what's going on here. All right, so seeing as there's no further discussion, we'll move to vote whether or not to circulate the presentation for Students Nova Scotia. And it requires a 2/3 majority. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
All those opposed?
Abstentions.
The motion
Carries.
carries.
Would anyone like their abstentions or dissents noted in the minutes? No. Carolyn Waters has also, with the Provo, has also, well, I guess she hasn't even sent us the PowerPoint, so we don't need, that's a problem, isn't it? Right. It was voted that into the agenda, but I guess we don't need to whether or not there's communication because she never actually sent it. That's what's okay. So now I guess we can move on to our first. Yes.
So it was not even an appendix because you never received it.
That's correct. Perhaps that's something that you can bring to her attention when she gets received. So now we can move on with our first substantive matter of business, and that's the presentation from Students Nova Scotia. Jonathan, welcome.
I have your here. Did you want to like control the computer or yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sorry, I hope I mentioned the presentation to you earlier. I hope I didn't make you passing your agenda too much longer. Sorry. It takes a little while. So please. So I guess it's nice to meet you all. There's some faces I know or recognize, and a lot of you I don't. But I'm the executive director at Students Nova Scotia, so one of the 4 full-time staff members. Sorry that I'm here alone. It wasn't planned, but the other people I was supposed to be with couldn't make it tonight. So you'll have to just do with me. All right, so who are we then? We're the Provincial Advocacy Group for Youth. And we have about 7 member student associations, so the DSU is the biggest of those member associations, but you can see the logos of the other ones at the bottom, and I'm in your way. So I'm going to sit down, that way you can actually see.
But tell me if you can't hear me. We represent about 38,000 students, about 86% of the university students in Nova Scotia. We've also begun to represent Canadian college students. The first time that Canadian college students in Nova Scotia have had an advocacy voice, at least to my knowledge, at the provincial. And that's a diverse student body, as you probably imagine. So we're your provincial organization in particular. DSU was a founding member of Student Finance in 2004. DSU has also contributed a lot of leadership towards students in Nova Scotia. For the first 4 years of the organization, the DSU actually was the chair, held the chair position as Student NS, and that's 5 out of 11 years ago. The DSU new executives have been officers for 8 out of 11 years. The officers of the board are sort of the lead, again, the lead board members, direct student representatives of the board. And we also had at least one executive director who was the graduating VP from the DSU. I believe this is the second one who held that position for a shorter period of time, about a half a year. These have been really dominated by DSU leadership, not in a hegemonic sense, but in a positive sense of occupying those roles. And we've also had 2 referendum votes in the last 3 years at the DSU that supported continued funding, or in one case increased funding to students in Nova Scotia. So what do we do? We represent Nova Scotia students by researching the challenges that you face, finding solutions to those challenges, creating the space for solutions. And you'll see that we're really looking at what are the problems, and we'll focus on what are the solutions. In particular, what are the solutions that we can make happen. We do that through a number of different areas, but we like to think about 3 different areas: campaigns, government relations, and research. So campaigns are about engaging with students, to have students send the message for themselves. The government relations is about the ongoing dialogue with government, things like media relations, to maintain kind of students in their view and their kind of understanding of what student challenges are, and the research piece. In our view, if you don't have these sort of 3 pillars that support a platform for students, and if you don't have any of the pillars, then you're going to have a very weak platform. You're not going to be very effective. So we try to be strong at all 3. Times better at some, times better at others. We focus around.
This isn't.
That's what they talk about. That's okay.
This is the one you sent yesterday.
I emailed you one a few minutes ago, but that's.
No. I'm going to be able to. Sorry about that.
That's my bad. My bad.
Anyone see any good movies lately?
It's just reordered.
Reordered originally, and I cut my details that are probably going to be a little longer. There we go. There we go.
All right. So.
Brand drop. So now like on PSO.
First question.
Here's a first question.
Just for
where do you think that we rank in terms of how much money goes to secondary?
So how much money does Dow have?
For each of you? Do
you think it's a lot or not very much?
A lot or not very much?
Very much.
Not very much.
Some guesses. What do you think?
Some guesses. What do you think?
You're shaking your head out here. Pretty damn low.
Pretty damn low.
So we actually
ranked third
in the total amount of money that goes to in the Western world. So these are the rich countries.
And it's third in terms of the amount of our wealth as Canadians that we put into this.
So how does that speak to the low enrollment of First Nations?
It means
So it's increasing someone like this.
I can speak to that a bit better. You'll see a bit better in the slides later. So basically, like those dollars are not getting leveraged. And
So my question would be, what are you guys doing to ensure that?
Well, okay, I'll get to that. How does Canada rank for public spending on the DSU? This was total spending that we were talking about before. So that's your dollars and the government's dollars. How do we rank for public spending? Well, we're third in terms of the share of our public dollars that go to post-secondary institutions. And we're first in the share of our education dollars that go to post-secondary education in the OECD. So we spend more on post-secondary education compared to how we spend on K to 12 than any other country in the Western world. And then the last one here is how you'll hear the thing that the funding was cut to universities in the 1990s, and so they're totally chronically underfunded. But the reality, if you actually look at what happened with university funding, is that they had massive increases in funding over the period following the 1990s, and particularly you were paying for those increases.
Or you move to the next slide. So yeah,
yeah, no, that's not that fast.
But keep in mind that you have no more than 15 minutes, so you've got plenty of time. You've got another 10 minutes.
Slow down. Yeah. So that takes a bit of a couple more. $61 million is cut in terms of operating firms, no explosions to this, but the other side of it, in terms of the system, that would appear highly funded by traffic standards. But 61 million has been cut in real dollars in the past 4 years for the universities. Still haven't cut this year. It's basically funding match inflation. And we've seen massive increases in ancillary fees to try and compensate for that. So this is some research that we released a month ago. Not really research, it's some analysis of data that come out on these fees. And basically, since tuition was capped at 3%, they've gone to these backdoor fees to be able to raise their revenues through other ways. It's about $3 million is what they're paying extra fees. 100% increase in ancillary fees. They've doubled those fees across the system. Again, it's a way of getting around a limit on how much you collect. And then finally, what comes out of this in terms of the student debt figure? It's pretty bad. Quite bad. So we come at $30,000, well above the national average. I think we're second highest in the country now, but TBI is the highest. They're pretty small. But it has come down a little bit according to some facts, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I have one more slide there. It's just an interesting one. We did a projection of the normal trend. Because Nova Scotia, as you know, is getting older. The number of young people is going down. And it's actually falling considerably, so it's going down about the number of young people in college and go to university or college when they graduate. And because of that, we're estimating that if universities want to keep the numbers of students indoors, we're not going to dump the number of graduates. So we're going to look at a system that has a third of the students going overseas within the years. And you see that this year, only 0% growth across the system. International, not by 5%. So the domestic only picked it up. Am I going too fast, or am I going
one slide I would ask about one fast.
So we have worked around core values: accessibility, affordability, quality, and support. And these are kind of the ideals that we're trying to achieve. This is why we go to work, because we want to see these things happen. We want to see everybody who can, who's qualified to go to post-secondary education, complete post-secondary education. We want it to be, regardless of post-secondary education, to not stop doing what they want to do with their life. We want to get something out of that education that helps them be successful for the rest of their life, in terms of their citizenship and their wealth, but also their money. And we want students to participate in meaningful things. And so, you look at those challenges, but one of the things to keep in mind is that not all students face those challenges to the same extent. Some students have a harder time affording books, they have a harder time accessing them, and some don't have as hard a time. And so a lot of our focus is on students who have the most difficulty in fulfilling those challenges. So I'm going to give you a few examples that we put together. This is some new research. We're going to have this up on our website shortly, but we've done some case studies of particular students what are the circumstances. So the first one is Polly Blinken. I had never seen the movie, but we thought it would be. So he's an 18-year-old student and he has a disability.
He's from a low-income family, rural Nova Scotia. He's completing an undergrad at DSU, and it'll take him 5 years. And he lives in residence. So what are his costs like? And we looked at 3 different scenarios. The first one is his cost in 2004. That's the year that ANSO was created, so the ANSO was created. We looked at it in 2014-15, this year, and we looked at what would be happening this year if our recommendations were implemented as of last year. Now, there's recommendations that we had since 2004 that were implemented. We haven't integrated those in. And a lot of this takes a lot of work. 2004 numbers are not perfect. I would say all the numbers, the total numbers that we put up, give or take a couple $1,000. So his costs come to about $19,000, $20,000 in total in 2004. Tuition is a big part of that. Tuition is going up by 8% a year in 2004. That's another cost. Technology costs related to disability. And he gets the money he needs in grants. This is actually a mistake because not the exact matchup. In this case, but run the scenario. And some of that comes in grants, some of it comes. That brings his debt at graduation to $61,000. Assuming he finishes his degree in 5 years. And about 25,000 of that is Nova Scotia. So he's in a major hole after grad. Let's look at his situation now. So his costs have gone up. His tuition is actually lower than it was in 2004 because he gets a Nova Scotia University student person. His residence has gone up dramatically, almost triple. And his technology costs, improving them at the same time, have gone up. But that's not something we should look at. But what are his resources? The resources are still there. He doesn't have unmet need. He's getting $12,000 federal grant. 7,000 still in federal loans, the maximum amount. He gets a lot more money in provincial grants than he used to get. And then he gets $3,600 and $700 provincial loans. So he's getting the money to cover everything. But what's his debt picture look like when he graduates? There's a program that was introduced 3 years ago that converts his provincial loans to grants for the first 4 years. So his debt at graduation comes out to $22,000 less than 10 years earlier. And that difference is actually bigger than it looks because the $61,000 from 2004 is worth more expensive than $61,000. So there's a dramatic difference in his quality of life. Comes out with about $3,700 in provincial student loans. That's for the 5th year. The debt cap doesn't apply to the 5th year. But otherwise, he's still a problem there. I'm trying to graduate with $39,000 on that. But it's time to graduate with $1,000. So when you talk about targeted assistance, is what you're talking about. Students that have more challenges. We're talking about a student that has more challenges. And who's doing considerably better, right? Student on low income, regardless of the ethnicity, right? Low income student has disabilities, so disabilities generally accumulate the most debt for the first 30 years of any kind of student, and the circumstances are better.
So this person you're using, you do know equivocally that they actually did get that disability money? Because saying that it's available and saying that they get it are two different things. I have a student with disability. Half of that money we do not get. It's there, but thank you to Stephen Harper, we don't qualify for it unless you are so disabled that you are now almost unable to go to school.
I wouldn't necessarily speak to that, but that's partially kind of federal programs, right? That's what we deal with. But these are programs that are available to them, and it is a reflection of the resources that they have.
Just because they're there doesn't mean they get the less money.
And I think you're totally right. There's two things. Student assistance, right? There's how do you bring down people, and it's how do you make sure that people get the money, right? And those are the two big challenges. And we see with this student that they're doing better on the picture. They're not much better in terms of getting the money that you need necessarily. The other thing with student loan is that he's a person with a disability. If he doesn't make a good income after he graduates, the payment assistance program will wipe out all his debt. in 5 to 10 years. I don't remember exactly how it works. It's either 5 or 10 years. But they pay down your principal for your annual assistance.
Not everybody with disability will include
If you register with them,
I
but you have to.
everybody.
So this is that scenario again, and very briefly, these are some of the recommendations we made. I've highlighted in red areas where we need to where research we don't have recommendations. There's clearly something wrong with the residency plan going up by that much. We just haven't done that yet. These are the resources you'd have, and instead of graduation, would be all federal debt. There'd be no provincial debt anymore. Juno McGowan is our second example. So she's a low-income single mother. This is somebody that reflects people that might know. No financial support for her family. She's completing her undergrad in St. Effect in 3 years. Difficult, as you can imagine, to finish an undergrad degree in 4 years, considering most students don't finish an undergrad degree in 4 years. And she's also has kids, but let's say that she's for her emphasis. So how's she doing in 2004? Cost of $22,000. Her resources are $18,000. So she's not getting the money she needs to go to school. She's short. So this is an example of somebody with unmet need. There's about 2,000 students in Nova Scotia. And her debt at graduation is $15,000. 20,000 provincial loans. But she has a funding shortfall of $16,000. So she has to find $16,000 to go to university. And that's basically, that's a very, very difficult thing. Hopefully the university has financial aid for her, but she's going to have a tough time.
$15,000 per
total over the 4 years. Yeah. So let's look at her 2013-15 and see how it changes. So her costs have gone up. Her tuition and fees have gone up. Interestingly, I think if you look at her tuition has not gone up. What's gone up is the ancillary fees. So that piece where I mentioned to you, where the ancillary fees jumped up, she really is feeling that. Her housing costs, her costs of that. Her resources are $10,000 short. So again, this is somebody that we're not helping out. She gets some federal grants, some loans, some provincial grants, some provincial loans. She finishes her degree in 4 years. All of her provincial loans are converted to grants. She graduates with $28,000 in debt. So again, the debt level, we've made progress. She's down $20,000 in debt. But she is $40,000 short on the college over 4 years. So she again is in tough. And if she doesn't have some kind of extra help, if she doesn't have somebody that's taking care of her kids for her for free, or she hasn't got heavy assistance from school, she's not going to university. There's no way to fund her costs. And this is somebody who feels the biggest benefit from the direction that we've been going since then. Those are situation there. And here's her recommended situation. Sorry, this is her recommendations. Only applying our tuition policy from last year. We had tuition policy longer than that. Our tuition would be considerably lower. We had a history of getting everything going on that. But her resources would match her costs. That should match. Anyway, and she's getting $16,000 in provincial grants. So her grant amount's going up by $10,000 a year. Her debt at graduation stays the same. Her funding shortfall is 0. We recommended that government eliminate the maximum assistance amount that she can receive, and that they provide all the funding for provincial government programs. So she is doing considerably better, but right now the situation is totally unacceptable. Basically, single mother, low income, no other support, you cannot go to university.
Are you aware of the SEED program? The provincial program that puts people through university, they're on assistance and single parents.
Yeah. So you would have to be on assistance to qualify, but you're right, there are some.
So there are some. So it'd be advantageous if your group actually would have to the provincial government implement the programs that are there and put them in the process because they are there, they're just not using them.
Well, the other thing about those kinds of programs, and she would generally get this, is that they mostly apply to an FCC program. So this
Let's wonder if that SEED program is for university only.
There's been some that have changed, so they
SEED program is actually involved in something to do with it. That's what let you know.
That's great.
It's university only.
That's great. So,
sorry to interrupt, John. We've reached the end of the 15 minutes. But that does not foreclose the opportunity for councillors to ask any further questions. Yes, exactly.
Could you explain the situation for international students?
can I explain the situation for
Yeah, like I see that next.
Just where there were some interruptions with questions during his presentation, maybe we can give him a little more time to finish up.
There's been a bit of delay, I can tell you. Yeah, I did take that into account.
Okay.
Yeah, but I move to give him more time to finish.
Is that motion on seconder? Michael? For how long?
5 minutes.
sure, and I won't finish it, but that's fine.
Okay, does anyone have a different time period they'd like to suggest? Seeing none, we'll vote to give him 5 more minutes. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstention? Okay, I'll give you 5 more minutes. And then after that, we'll have time for questions.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to try and be a little bit quicker, but I'm also, So, the scenario with him is that he's making a median Chinese income. It's about half of what income Canada. And he's still on the record, and he's completing PhD scholar. So, student, Chinese student making that income, in many cases, many international students coming to that kind of income, you've got a family that is entirely sacrificing, and that's the able to get here, saving for a long period of time. Oftentimes it's a family endeavor, not the individual government, for an individual. So, his situation, 2004, $2,000 in costs, no financial assistance from the government. His costs were going up at 12% a year, approximately that time. You see that the tuition growth in the 90s, or the early 2000s, is totally insane. His cost now, $29,000. His tuition, $15,000, $16,000. Growing at 3% per year. Generally, universities seem to be really reluctant to increase fees for international students faster than for domestic students, but they do do it. Dalhousie did it by a dramatic amount a few years ago. He's got student fees have gone up. He's got financial assistance. So there's a graduate scholarships program that was introduced last year that was a direct recommendation from the Senate. That is where his differential. So he's got $8,400 that he didn't have before. Takes him in terms of total cost of where it was in the first place. But it is improved, certainly this year compared to last.
Yeah. How many graduate students are benefited from the graduate program?
I believe that it's a $3.7 million program, but they paid half of it out this year. So I think it's 300 graduate scholarships. We designed the program. The government took it out of our project program. And we basically set the same number of graduate scholarships in Nova Scotia relative to our population as what they have in Ontario batches. It's the same values, the same program. The government did it a bit differently with international students, quite different differential, as opposed to giving you the scholarship, which would have been provided. So that was great. But most international students are getting, I don't remember the precise numbers, probably 50 of those, but I'm not certain.
And in our
scenario that we recommended, his cost $29,000, but he would have $82. So his differential will be wiped out because he's a low-income international student with a scholarship, and he gets the Nova Scotia Graduate Scholarship. So he's doing considerably better. Most of his costs are covered in that scenario. We've recommended that 10% of the international student differentials be removed to support international students that come from lower income. So I think I can go through the rest of the presentation, but I can't. So I guess, what's the point? The point is that there is an impact that's happening. That the impact that's happening is being felt by people
who feel the most the impact of things not being okay. And that an approach where we're focused on achievable outcomes is not entirely failing the population as well, and your student body. And I think there's lots more in this presentation. There's a tiny more that needs to be done. This current government has $35 million on using, and they're not feeling the pain for that, and they need to feel the pain for that. There needs to be a lot of pressure on this government in context of MOU, negotiating the agreement between the province and the universities for them to do things differently. I'm not going to answer you because you're going to get questions in a second. I'm not using that. But and so, together, the students as common have the ability, I think, to continue to change things. We have the advocate corporate that says that us, all of us, are the crucial ingredient in this province that would lose every year, and that they have to do things differently to support us better, to be able to stay here, to build our lives here, want to be here, to not just have to be okay to be here, but to be here to be a more competitive option, a preferable option to be somewhere else, something you don't sacrifice to do. And so I'm really happy to answer questions if you have. Really encourage any all of them to check out our website. There's a lot of information on there. We're doing a better job at making things more accessible. We provide summaries of the reports that we do. Have these identities up on their first, this is not first yet. In terms of getting really precise stuff. And we're really anxious to hear from you. We're really anxious to work with you to do what we can. Student Senate is not going to change the direction of the province. We are going to change the direction of the province. We're going to do that if we can. So I think that's everything I want to mention on. If you have questions about that. Is that?
One of your slides, you said that we're the third in terms of GDP per capita on student spend and post-secondary education spending. I was wondering where does that, or how is that money spent? Is it spent like on grants, on university funding, on mix of both?
Yeah. My understanding would be that it would be both. It would be a mix of all the things that we do to fund our system. But then again, if you get a grant and it's covering your tuition, that would cancel out, right? Because it's just taking money from one thing that gives you money back. So, yeah, it's everything.
So I'd ask you a question regarding how you ensure that what funding is available is being personal. Similar to what Michael brought up, how do you make sure that what resources are available are being linked up to those, as well as there needs to be more? And in response to that question, you showed 2 case studies of 2 white individuals, and the third was international students. So that none of those really answered my question. And I want to also know, how do you monitor and evaluate your research reporting methods? Because I think that's relevant. If you're only researching a very specific demographic, you're not meeting these a lot of potential students that have the right to be.
So your first question, I mean, the examples of white I mean, those they could be any ethnicity. Now,
those represent all students, and that does not represent Canada.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we thought about it when we decided that the ethnic background we were going to get in trouble, maybe no matter what we did, so we just people from behind. So, your Aboriginal students are one exception. So that would apply to any ethnicity aside from First Nations, because First Nations receive their funding from the federal government, and there's serious problems with that discriminatory cap on funding for Aboriginal students. That's something we haven't done there yet. So we've done work on a different issue. We haven't. I would really love to. I used to work for an Aboriginal, for example.
I would totally love to. We just haven't gone to that particular issue in this spring. If you're a low-income Aboriginal home who's off reserve, then you access the student assistance program, and if you're low income, you're benefiting from these changes as much as the examples. Either of those examples could have been an Aboriginal person, but would not have been a First Nations person, notwithstanding the policy that
Michael?
I just want to contradict you there on one thing. Those things that were offered there, if you're First Nations and you're registered, you must go through your band first. So they do not offer those things to First Nations. There are First Nation students that have had to drop out of the Dalhousie University because their band couldn't afford to keep them here and because they didn't get that. So they don't give you both. It's one or the other. And Dalhousie mandate will not give from that side if you are First Nations and registered. I am First Nations as well. The other thing is to make the statement that you made earlier about that it represented all students. It doesn't, because some of those programs, as we researched them, I'm sure, are not available to all ethnicities. They're supposed to be, but they're not put out there. And that was one of the things I was talking about earlier with the C program and stuff like that. So there is a difference in how those programs are being used within our province. So I think that would be something that we're looking into, and to make sure that they're implemented.
I totally agree. I'm sorry if I meant to say that as you said that
students wouldn't access
off reserve Aboriginal, non-First Nations Aboriginal students could access this. If they were on reserve or if they were banned, then they could access banned funding. If they can access that.
Off reserve still do not do it. It depends on if you're 6 1 or 6 2. So it actually doesn't matter where you're located. It depends on what you are to a band, if you're actually listed to a band. So just to correct the there.
Is access looking for the program. Let me know. I would love to hear more from because clearly you're really accomplished. So, yeah.
Before I recognize Nolan, I want to make sure that anyone who hasn't spoken has the opportunity to ask a question. Do I see a hand up?
Actually, my question is regarding the international students. So in case of them, when funded students are getting actually NSGS or Masters or PhD students are getting this scholarship. So how you guys are monitoring that it's going into students' pocket, whether the supervisor is not cutting the money from their RA fund? Are you guys monitoring that? Because I think it's not being maintained. The students are not getting the whole Nova Scotia scholarship. Their RA money has been cutting down significantly, and that doesn't make sense that whether they got the scholarship or not. At the end of the year, they have to write down a report, and I myself experienced that. So how you guys are monitoring that?
To be honest, that's not something I've heard about. So
you guys don't monitor that.
I mean,
we just getting the scholarship, accepting the scholarship. At the end of the year, I have to produce a paper where I'm getting paid the same amount I have been getting paid last year. It doesn't make any difference.
So they just basically pay you the scholarship.
Yeah. This is kind of like that. So I actually regarding this thing, I actually talked with HGS, and I didn't heard they don't monitor. So since you guys are linked with providing or something, whether you are planning to monitor this thing or not.
No, I'd really like to do that.
Yeah. And
that's something I hadn't
with our supervisor as well. So
that's I hadn't heard about that. So that's something that we definitely like to look into. It hasn't been rolled out well this year. I've heard tons of concerns with the first year. With whether or not the money got out the door on time, did students decide to go somewhere else before the funding was announced. You just a host of different problems. So that's another one. And there's a history of funding being taken for things that it's not supposed to do in universities. So a good example of that is that if you get a grant, a research grant at Dalhousie,
Generally, Dalhousie will take 40% of it, as much as 40% for administration. Maybe 20%, I could be wrong. And but in any case, there were, Carolyn, please.
Only if it's federal, if you get money from, if I make a deal with the federal government to have, do some research for them, then 40%. No money that students are involved with would ever be levied off the top. I'm curious about your problem, so I'll check it out, because they very carefully monitor what that money goes to, so there's something else going on there, so. Sorry.
Interesting, though. So that is what I meant, sorry, with federal grants to researchers. The problem is also through the funding formula, provide grants to cover the administration of research. And yet, the universities are still taking the money on the federal grants as well. So that's another example.
That's what Jonathan, it can't be used for anything else. Can't take that 40% and use it to pay anything else, because that's the structure of the government grant. So other research things you can and should use at least 80% for student funding. So there are 3 different kinds, and some you can, and the federal tri-council money cannot be spent on anything else. So it's a bit convoluted, as only our government can make it.
Are there any more questions for Jonathan before I build? Well, Yizan has already asked some questions, so we'll go Dylan and then Yizan. Dylan has stand up first.
I still don't feel like you've answered my question. What will you do to monitor and evaluate your research and reporting methods? I have concern regarding the scope and depth of your reports. You have to be careful to ensure that you're not perpetuating stereotypes and that you're actually getting to the heart of what the issues are. For example, perpetuating the belief that all sexual assault victims are women, which is untrue, which is something that was strongly conveyed once through reports. And from what I've seen here as well, that First Nations Aboriginal students are all, it's not accurate. So how do you ensure the quality of your reporting?
I think that's a little unfair. I don't think I didn't have it that way.
Since you answered my question, how do you ensure your reporting is depth and scope?
Yeah, I mean, the example you identified with sexual assault, we focused on gender violence and that report, it should be said, it's not a consensus report. I was done by an external consultant in the advisory committee, so we didn't have.
I have concerns regarding you accurately answering my question. How do you ensure you are monitoring and evaluating your reports?
So, at the beginning to answer your question. The other piece is that our reports, when drafted, they go out for a month in draft, so that they can be reviewed, so that we can talk to stakeholders that we interviewed, so that we can talk to the people that we interviewed who know more about the issues than we do, ideally. And so that when we release it, it's as good as possible. So that's the first step that we do. We also have full-time staff writing those reports, so that we can have a higher caliber, hopefully, than if it's something I don't know. The other piece, so that's I guess, a major part of all the issues. There are still problems. The reports are not perfect. There were one particular that's that they're really big. And so I go through them 6 months after there's going to be a half published, and I'm off with my book, but in terms of the evaluation afterwards, the reports are in their policy continues, and then we're in a position where the policy has to be. I don't know what the policy will process. One of the things that, I've talked about answering responses, but the student finance in the shape that it's in now, it is only 2 years old. So we haven't had a requirement. So that process is something that we're looking at quite seriously this year in terms of how do we evaluate whether or not we have this in our communication for our report. How do we evaluate whether or not they're uploading? And if we don't have anything, we'll share really there's something wrong with the approach for better, we can just be better. The other thing, the final piece that I didn't check out our plan. I think it was attached with the PowerPoint. We have that's one way of actually priorities that actually on planning increasingly towards so you'll see our annual plan has table deliverables, and then we will have tables at the end that measure how many days. We have policy recommendations in there. We're going to quarterly report this week how we're doing so far this year. And we have measures after that, how we have relative to policy. Are we getting policy? We don't expect it to we do expect to get some of it. So I agree with you on the annual report. I think you'll find that we're not perfect, but we're pretty good on and reporting, and it's a continual process. We're run by I'm on these things. I know we learn a lot. We learn a lot from how long we continue to I hope that is a bit better.
I didn't intend to dodge the question. I think I just dodged the question and I forgot.
The last question will belong to you, Zach.
I'm just wondering, a lot of the problems that may have happened in 2014 have resulted because students haven't had, in my opinion, enough representation in MOUs. And I was wondering, considering the recent development with the MOUs, what student NS is doing about that. The fact that we've been basically shut off from the discussion.
Yeah. I mean, part of the answer is like, what are we doing? Right. So we have the full we developed largely on it's there's a website there well so it's and if you look at it, it's very focused on the 35 million innovation contribution, but I think our intent now is that governments put us in a position where we have to battle against government to put pressure on them, and so that the pressure is on the same thing. So there is participation. I think that campaign is the most important thing that we can do to try and influence what's going on in the MOU. We are shutting the MOU for the first time since the 2004 MOU, I believe. 2005, I believe. 2008. Wow. So that's a break with how things are done. It is really working. We didn't get what we wanted out of that last MOU. That was not a good MOU. Students going for it was and you're satisfied that we used the tuition reduction. But part of how students are able to make MOUs is that if you talk to our problems on VP, guys like or DSU or Cal Powers, our current Dow student, those are the two guys that were in the MOU last time. And it's very tough to imagine other events that students in the team. There were big things like last minute deregulate tuition, have a meeting with the tuition on a thing they're going to use as it points out what's going on. And it does have to be able to say, look guys, this is not a very, very wrong direction. So it's tough. I think the campaign is the biggest piece of pressure on the government to have an MOU that is important.
Sorry, we have a couple of more presentations. I already said that you said
I was just going to raise a point of order about that.
Oh, I thought you had a question.
No.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to thank Jonathan for coming in.
The last slide in the presentation, because that's the one that says all the things you can do with us if you want to get involved. So please check that one out. Okay, let's move on to our next presentation. I believe it's Sir Roger. Doug, you had a PowerPoint as well. Would you like to just go ahead here?
Sure. There you go.
Right, so you've got no more than 15 minutes, and I'll take account of any questions that may arise.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Doug Rogers, and I'm here representing the Center for Learning and Teaching, and I'm here to talk to you about the learning management system. So, what we're talking about a learning management system is the current environment at Dalhousie is since the inception of the learning management system, this was probably in 1995, we've used Blackboard. So So we've used Blackboard. So in 1995 it was actually called WebCT, but eventually Blackboard bought WebCT. So we've had about 20 years using the same system, and there's never actually been a review of what our LMS needs are currently and what they might be in the future. So that's the purpose of the project that I'm involved in. And I'm actually, this is exclusively my job. I'm the LMS reviewer. But it's not just Dalhousie that's doing it. So it started as a conversation with Dalhousie, but in conversations with some of our partners, primarily St. Mary's to begin with, we realized they'd never done a review either. And they're also a Blackboard campus. So they said, hey, we'd love to do that with you. And then Mount St. Vincent also expressed an interest. It kind of steamrolled after that. Now we've got 8 institutions. So we're actually moving forward in a potential consortium of a group that will purchase learning together. That's the ideal. And it could also be very beneficial for students if you do get on the same page, because you can take a course at the Mount in the same learning environment they can take whatever that should be. So the plan is working with our partners. Like I said, we're investigating the possibility of purchasing an LMS as a consortium. So, and this is right in line with what the province is kind of looking at, a shared services model for the universities in the province. So we're not paying for products over and over again. So this is the ideal. That being said, all of the universities that are involved with this project are choose what's best for their university. So if somebody should choose a product that doesn't work for another university, that's go with that. So where we're at right now, I began my position in late July, and my first task was to get an RFP, which is a request for purchase together, which we put out in early September and has since actually expired. So we do know what learning management systems are up for review. I'm willing to share that information here. So the next step from there is we're going to get each vendor, each successful vendor, to set up a sandbox space. And so it's like a place where people can play. So students, faculty, administrators, whoever wants to get access, we will have a means to get people access to the different. So here's the evaluation process. So what we have at the top there is a steering committee. This actually Ram sits on this committee as the president of the DSU. We've also got a healthy mixture of deans. We've got some associate deans, program directors, people like my boss, the executive director for the Center for Learning and Teaching. So they're kind of overarching. We're using a provost model here. So the recommendations actually come up to this committee, who will formalize it all into a final report, which will go to the provost for a final decision. And below that steering committee, we've really kind of identified 3 major stakeholders in the process. Those are IT professionals, faculty, and yourselves as students. So with that being said, we've identified a technical review team, which is made up of assistant administrators. We have somebody who's going to go into the systems and look at them purely from an accessibility perspective. So they are to standard on that. We've got somebody who's going to look at security. And if the site's not secure, we can't use it, obviously. So we need to make sure that everything's improved that way. And this technical committee is also going to look at particular features. Because in the learning management system landscape, I mean, they all generally do similar things, but it tends to come down to special features that separate one from the other. So this technical committee will take a look at that as well. So what we've generated as a committee is it's going to be 18 pages of technical criteria, which we're going to use to grade each system. And within that criteria, we've broken them down to must-have, should-haves, and nice-to-haves. Philosophically, it took us a while to define must-have, but we've got it down to, if the system doesn't have it, we can't really look at it. So it's the core things that you would expect to find in any learning management. A discussion board need to have it because it's essential. So what we're going to do, we're going to assign point values to each of those, and that way the technical review team will go in, mark them all, and we'll be able to actually rank them based on actually quantitative points. And then after that, we've got faculty review as well. We've actually managed to identify, I think we're at 21 different faculty that are going to take part in the formal process. And these faculty members come from all faculty, so everybody's represented. We had somebody from every department. And the way we're going to do the formal faculty review is we're broken it down into 2 formal meetings, which are 2 of them are actually taking place this week. So we're meeting different faculty groups on different days just to discuss the process. And then we're going to let the faculty go out and go in, review the systems back and do a survey for the system, so that we can use a Likert scale analysis and analyze how they felt about each individual system. And then we have a formal student review as well. So again, we went to the societies. I'm sure some of you probably received an email at one point or another. And what we've done is we've identified 20 students as well. We're not quite there, so we still have a little bit of space left for students in the formal student review. And in this case, we're actually going to do 3 sessions. So we're actually going to bring people together as well. So we're going to rent out a computer lab, get people in the same room, and maybe do a system for an hour, right? And then answer a survey based on that system. So we've got a series of tasks that you would generally find that people tend to use learning management systems for. And then again, going in and looking at the special features. And we're going to, after each system is evaluated, we're going to give everyone a survey and have them answer questions about it. So we're looking at 2 sessions where we're going to do that. And then the final session is we're going to bring everybody back and discuss the different systems in a focus group, so that we can get some qualitative responses. So those are the 3 formal layers of the review. And the reason we're doing it that way is to make sure that we get proper comparative review, right? So we don't expect everyone to go in and look at every single system, but with these core groups, that's what they've been asked for, is to look at every single system. But below that, we have another layer of the review, which is by the Dalhousie itself. We're offering access to any system. So if you want to go in and look at Blackboard, for example, or you want to look at Desire to Learn for a couple of days, we're going to have an avenue for you to do that. It's primarily going to be email me for access. That includes the process we've come up with. And we're going to offer surveys, or the other thing that we're encouraging people to do, especially since we have so many societies and different student groups, is if you want to get together and do a collaborative review, we would absolutely. So you can put together a very management system, send it in, and we'll make it part of the review. The other thing that we have recently launched is a blog for updates and questions. So that we can continue to answer questions to the community, because I mean, learning management system is so essential to the environment. When you look at learning on campus, you look at you have your classroom space and you have your online space. So it's a very, very important process, and important that the review is done in a thorough and transparent manner. So here's our overarching steering committee. So we got Brad from the REC, Kieran's, a few other people. And here's our timeline. So like I said, October 10th, our RFP closed. So right now, and I'm sure somebody will ask the question, but I'm happy to share, we have 3 vendors that we're looking at. And we did expect to have 4, and there's a good reason why we don't have 4 on the table. The three that we're going to look at are Blackboard, which is our current provider. And it's worth pointing out that it's not Blackboard as we know it at Dalhousie. It's going to be a different Blackboard with features that we don't currently have. Brand new features to Blackboard as well. The other product we're going to look at is Desire to Learn, which is a company out of Ontario. And the third one is a product called Canvas, which is offered by a company called Instructure, which seems to be very popular in the States right now. So we're looking forward to looking at that. We did anticipate somebody coming to the table with a full solution. Has anyone taken a course using Moodle before? Perhaps. Yeah, anyone who's been to the Mount or St. FX or any of those. And I do believe they use Moodle in K-12. And somebody could come to the table with a hosted solution, but they got their proposal late, which meant legally we can't even open it, so we have to return it to the second. That's why we have three. We anticipated four, but we only have. So we have shortlisted. So November 1st, might even be earlier, because I'm in contact with the vendors right now. We should have the spaces open. So this is kind of imminent. November 14th is pretty loose at the moment, but we are trying to arrange to have every vendor come to campus to demonstrate their product. Not just this campus, but all of the campus. By December, which is in classes, we're hoping to have a formal evaluation. So we'll have the formal feedback from the IT steering committee, from the faculty committee, and students committee. And January 2nd, which we want to make sure that it's open as long as possible, is formal feedback. Because leave the sandbox spaces open until January 2nd. By January 16th, we hope to have a report submitted to the provost. And it's going to go through a few different steps before it ever gets to that, because this will be the one that goes to the provost shortly afterwards. But we want to take it to Dean's Council as well. We want to make sure that it goes through the system for learning and teaching. So it's, it will be rigorous. And then January 30th is when we hope to have a consortium decision. So this is when we're all going to meet at the table and decide whether or not we can all agree on products. And a consortium doesn't have to be every single university. It can be any combination of universities. So you can see there's many different layers to this. There's many complications as well. So part of my role as the LMS review for university education content. So that if you have any questions, the blog is a great way to get a hold of me. Or my email address, we will be looking to send out with my address attached to it as instruction to gain access to the system. Be happy to take your questions.
Are there any questions for Doug?
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, your request for proposals closed on October 10th.
Yes.
It says they were shortlisted. Is it just?
Well, we expected certain vendors. These are probably the three biggest. The only one that we are missing is there were some other smaller ones that we thought might have put in a bid, and Google just launched their own learning management system, so we would have been really curious had they come to the table.
Are there any more questions for Doug? Yes, William.
Yes. I'm just wondering how the universities. So a couple of years back, the student ratings and instructors stuff is integrated into the client. I'm just wondering how that's been considered as a part of that, because when it was actually rolled in, if at least from what I observed, it didn't seem like that had been done in a manner which had been really very on most of the university. It just seemed like it happened.
It just happens? Yeah.
And like, well, there had been some type of a consultation and demo process with the computer science faculty in the summer. When it rolled out at a larger scale, it didn't seem like the faculties have been made aware of that.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly the, I don't know, I wasn't here for the SRI. I'm brand new to the position, so I can't really speak to whatever happened with the SRI. But that's the reason we're doing it this way, is to get as much input as possible, so that we're providing the opportunity for anyone to provide feedback on systems that are evaluated, so that it's not a one person went to see some demonstrations or however many people are there. That's how the decision was made in 1995, but back then there really was only one major player in management systems. So we're following models that have been pretty popular. So the LMS review has been done at the University of Calgary, it's been done at UBC. So we're following that process, and our goal is to get as much feedback as possible.
Are there any more questions for Doug? Thank you very much for coming and giving your presentation. All right. And we have a final presentation. I understand you have a USB stick. Okay. All right. Very. Where'd it go?
Oh. Okay, start your picture. Street out that way. Going to do this in 2 cases. I'm Carolyn Waters, almost.
Yes. Finish. Are you speaking on the clock?
Page. I don't know if I have enough, but just back for a while. I can get one out. Right there. Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm still Carolyn Waters. Okay, I'd like to address 2 issues, 2 separate ones. So I asked Rams if I could come and talk to everybody. So 2 big things have been going on that I'd just like everybody to know about. First thing is the President's Strategic Directions. So the students, the faculty, and the staff, and everybody contributed to the 100 Days of Listening and the report that came out of that. Out of all that material, we culled 5 different thematic areas, which you'll see across this way. Teaching and learning, research, service, return to society, partnership and reputation, and infrastructure and support. So under those 5 themes, a number of very specific priorities were set for the direction until 2018. And of these, so you can kind of read them through. The main ones I would think that would be of the greatest interest to the students would be under the teaching, learning, and research, not surprisingly, and service, where we're talking a lot more about experiential learning. How do we get more people doing co-ops, more people working in clinics, more people actually engaging with the community as a kind of return to society. And that also includes entrepreneurship and innovation. So I'm a big fan of innovation, where we look at innovation not just in order to start a company. And wherever you go, you're going to need to think through the process of innovation, even if you work for somebody like IBM. Like, it's not just, or you're in medical school, or you're wherever you are, innovation has to be a part of everybody's toolkit. So I always get a little frustrated when everybody focuses on, can we start a new company next year? So there's lots of other values. So social innovation, making sure that NGOs are actually more productive, making sure that we have ways of working in the society and making changes. So it's all about making changes. The other one that I would just draw to your attention, and I'm giving you this to take home, is kind of like, is the one there under infrastructure and support, somewhere in here, foster a collegial culture grounded in diversity and inclusiveness, to actually start to formulate policies and programs that actually allow us to actually increase access in general, in particular to look at the diversity issues in all programs, not just in specific ones, but to think about it more broadly. So that would include finally having a minor or a major in Aboriginal studies. That would include having our Aboriginal studies for health sciences. And that would include thinking about how we make groups who had a tough time getting through Dalhousie. One thing to get in is another thing entirely to get out, and to actually think through how that helps. So we've had a program for 4 years now, diversity and new faculty awards, so that we actually help faculties who are bringing in people from the designated groups, so disability, good old women, Nova Scotian, African Nova Scotians, and all of our Aboriginal peoples. So I think that it's sort of time to make some of these things blatantly obvious, that this is something we care about as a value of the whole community, and how are we actually going to move forward. So I don't give you this just so that you can put your TV on it when you go home. Out of this, so this was passed and approved by Senate and the board, so we've got everybody on side of this, so it means that we're now in the process for each one of these 25. You can imagine what my day looks like. Each one of these has a small group of people working to develop a one-page charter. What does this actually mean? So what does retention mean? Retention means that by 2018, our first-year retention should be at least at the U15 average. And it means that the percentage of our students who complete within 6 years should be at the U15 average. And I can tell you we are way below that. And our Nova Scotian students do worse in terms of retention and time to completion than our students who come from other places in Canada. And our international students do even worse. So what are we going to do about this? So we need to do a charter to set a goal for each of the 25. As soon as we have all 25, we're getting there, we're pretty close. Then each of these will have a group. So Stephen, you come into this pretty soon. Each of these will have a planning group to actually take the goals and break them down into milestones and deliverables for over a 4-year period. And then we have and for those, there's a planning group, and the groups might be 10 to 15. There'll be faculty members, there will be administrators, there will be students, there will be whoever we need in order to complete that. You know, there might not be many students who are lined up to reduce the deficit of a pension plan, but you don't know. Desperate to do that, and they would be welcome to help. So when you hear the call come out, when you see that again, and I might come back, and it's not rainy. coming again this room. But when you see that, if there's an opportunity, take advantage of the opportunity. Say, yeah, sure, I'll give that a try. It'll be pretty short. It'll be like 5-6 weeks to do the plan. There'll be some interesting people on it, and you're already involved in the community, so might be a great next step. Anyway, so that's what this is all about. Are there any questions about this? And I didn't give it this homework, and I'm not giving it a test. Good. Okay, so the other big thing that's been going on has been, and this I think actually has a definitely truly relevant to this group, programs group. And that's the changes in the provost model. So I'll try and explain what that is. So it's actually just a switch of titles, so that's why it's not very exciting. So generally, I'm known as the vice president of academic. But we've updated this role, and so what is relevant is why would we bother? University works fine, students get in, students get out. So there are two big gaps. The first big gap is that FDL housing, and this may be directly related to the retention of teaching problem, I don't really know. But FDL housing, there's a gap. There's actually a siloed difference between the academic programs and the non-academic support for students. And that's simplistically put, the vice president academic and the vice president of student services. So two different worlds, and more evidence points to the fact that these aren't separable. That if students are going to be successful, these things have to have synergy in it. We have to get people not duplicating services and not competing for services, but actually making sure that what's offered in our faculty and what's offered by student services has something to do with the program that students are in. And that's the first problem. The second problem is that because we have a very siloed university, and what that is code for, all of the money in the budgets sit inside either an administrative unit or inside a faculty. And there's actually relatively little that's left outside. So the deans and the vice presidents or directors, depending on the unit, they actually have control over that budget. And when we make big decisions, like building something or putting in a Wi-Fi or some big thing, then they're made in one of these silos, and that decision might have a big impact on resources available for something else. So those decisions are very hard to make, and we don't have the world's best track record of actually doing that particularly well. I'm kind of a nosy person, so I'm like, what are you doing over there? Are you sure you really want to do that? Maybe that's why I have this job. But anyway, we really need to do better. The university doesn't just have 6,000 students anymore. The budget is, the total budget for the university is about $660 million if you count all the research money. Operating budget is $360 million. That's 70% of that's in salary. So you've got a little bit in there, but you better make sure you're not throwing it around and wasting it and duplicating decisions. So we wanted to do that. Let me give you one example.
Got about 5 minutes.
Okay, that's good. So if you think through the process of building a new academic building, right? So the president can say, we're going to build a building over there. Finance guy says, no problem, I'll go and borrow the money. And the building gets built. Get a new building. Alas, how it gets paid for and how it gets looked after comes out of the operating budget. So now all of a sudden I'm excited. Research people are excited because they didn't get to say what kind of research space. Student services didn't get to say, well, how about the counseling room and how about learning spaces, right? So it gets all fractured up. So we need to make better decisions. We need all those people at the table before we borrow money and before we say we're going to build a certain kind of building. So that's Vice President Academic works with the deans and the Senate to make sure we've got programs essentially. But what's the provost do? So the provost part of this is important. So it's kind of like a mystery. You're going to have to wait to the second last slide to see why you should care. We need to ensure that the goals, that the money that's spent actually is integrated across the academic, administrative, and non-academic pieces of the university. So hold that little thought. So first gap is this difference. And so what we've done So in the little red box, you'll see a vice provost, student affairs. So that's bringing this, all of the student services inside the tent of the provost office. So it puts a vice president of student affairs, vice provost of student affairs, at the table with the deans and all of the other people who work in the provost office. So it puts the student services in the middle of all the academic decisions as a whole part. And so you can't go and do academic things and then find out later, oh, well, really, we should have been thinking about A, B, and C that for the students. We need to get these people as equal partners and sharing these decisions, not after the fact, trying to collaborate.
So you'll see all the usual stuff: registrar, student academic success,
The health and wellness, the leadership, everything in one.
Those are the you don't care about.
But I do. So the vice provost, student affairs. So here's the note. The test will be on this one line. Replaces the vice president of student services. So at first blush, you would think that's a bad idea. Right? Nancy mentioned it last night at the board meeting. That's a bad idea. But actually, it's a good idea because it means that this person is on the Dean's Council, which was mentioned, the Provost Committee, which is mentioned, and at the Provost Executive Committee. So why do we care that we have the student voice at the Dean's Council and at the Provost Committee? Because those are the two bodies that make all of the academic decisions. And so we want to have that voice there. So the counter argument is, but you used to have a voice at the president's table. And now you're going to get me with 19 hats. Now I'm a student. Now I'm something else. But, so as the provost model gets more solid, what happens is the president's exec is much higher level. And the president is spending much more time fundraising, negotiating with governments. And so the actual decision-making and the power play, if you like, ends up being at the provost table. So that's where we really need to have a real working relationship with the students in there. And when the president and I went to talk to when we had this idea, which is all the U15 have an idea. We're the only ones left that keep them separated and try not to let them commingle. So just not have any of that. So we talked to all the directors and the people over student services, and I was just overwhelmed by the enthusiasm they had for actually getting at the deans in particular, and getting at all the other vice presidents. So we're going to run this through until March, and we'll do a review. So I need you to kind of keep thinking, oh, I think we've missed out on something. I better go find the lady who made all those wild promises, and let's see if there needs to be an adjustment. But I truly believe that this will give us a much better end product in terms of getting student success. So even if you think of retention, so over in the athletics department, they told me that they had just started a new program aimed at retention. So really? How cool is that? So they said, yes, they were identifying students who were exhibiting signs of anxiety, and they were teaming them up with fitness programs with the kinesiology students, and so that they would have a peer fitness person, because exercise is the norm for them, to help if you're having anxiety or slightly depressed. I'm not making any medical comment on that, but I thought it was remarkable that this athletics program, which was strictly services, would actually step up and come up and say, we're now part of the academic league and we're going to try this out. I thought that was great. So I'm very encouraged, and I'm hoping that we'll get them.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm all done.
Oh, perfect.
So there you can see the power. That's it. Okay. I'll take some questions.
Absolutely. I'm sure there.
I could have talked faster.
I'm sure there are many questions for Carolyn.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. So I actually have a question about these.
Okay.
Yeah, underneath like the research section, it mentions attracting and retaining outstanding professors, which is awesome because I'm sure we all love when we have outstanding professors. But I was also wondering, I was looking through, and I don't know if I see it, but is there anything that Dal is looking at in retaining programs? Because it's hard to get an outstanding professor to stay if the program itself is gone.
Or sucks. Yeah. So the two ends to that particular dimension, right? So we are really looking at, oh, that's a great question. I usually have it in big red like a banner. We do have to look at the programs we have. Just because we've had a program since, the birth of Christ doesn't mean that we have to keep it, right? And we need to begin to look at the mix of things we have, because we need to be able to do we need new professors want to do new and innovative things and things we've seen. What we are not going to do, as long as I'm up here, we are not ever going to do a university-wide ranking system of our programs. Okay? Everybody hear that? We are not. But what we are doing is inside faculties asking faculty members to look at what programs students vote with their feet. If students just are not taking these programs, then maybe they should think of updating them or move, doing interdisciplinary programs or whatever makes sense in that field. So we are looking at programs, but sometimes it's keep the best ones, but it's got to be a local decision. Right?
And local meaning faculty?
Faculty department, that level.
Of the program itself? Or
yes, no.
Decides whether to keep or get rid of the program.
Because you want to put in a new one and you've got a relatively fixed envelope, then you might say, well, I've got this program. In the last 5 years, I've only had 2 students go through, and I've got 5 faculty members teaching courses. Maybe we all decide it's worth keeping because we're willing to spend money we get somewhere else on. Maybe we say, well, okay, maybe you'd like to do something else. So.
But yeah, nowhere in here. I guess it's just more.
Yeah, it says embark on strategic program reviews, but it's meant at that local level to enhance the effectiveness of student focus. I would challenge you to get this many words through Senate, right? And then to tell the story. It's a lot of words. Great question. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone in the room. So, at this point, your title is the Provost and Vice President Academic.
As of yesterday.
As of yesterday, so it's already been implemented. Okay.
Yes.
Just want everyone to know it's not something that we're deciding on. It's something that's already been implemented.
Yesterday at that board. It turned out that although we've had a Vice President Academic and Provost for, 10 years, it's never been actually put into a policy. So I probably have fraudulent colors all over the place. Any other questions?
Actually, how research is progressing overall in Dalhousie. How you guys? What are the parameters? How you guys look into that Dalhousie's research, the progress? How you how you measure that?
Right. Okay. So I'm not the VP research, so this is my opinion as a researcher. Put on that hat. A couple of things. I do think that we need to understand our strategic focus. So we have individual interests, academic freedom, but overall the university has to say we are actually going to be really good at these things so that some things perform. How would you measure it? So there are a number of ways of measuring it. There's kind of the simple how much external money do you bring in. For me, a lot of it is around, and you'll see in here there's a thing about attracting graduate students. If you look at a research-intensive university, the faculty to research masters and PhDs, not professional ones, but the research ones, should be somewhere over 2. So that because not every faculty member, so a ratio of, say, 1 faculty member to 2. If you're at MIT or Princeton or any of those, it'll get well over 4. And in some universities where they don't really have undergraduate programs, it'll be up to 7, right? We are below 1, right? That is not good enough, right? So we need to think of that pyramid. So you've got a lot of undergraduate students. You've got a fairly broad band of professional masters. What is that pyramid of? It's not big enough, right? And I can tell you, I mean, even in this job, I've got 3 PhD students. So it does take a lot of effort to get a PhD across that stage, but it's worth it, right? And so I think that's an area where we really have to do. And that's why I was glad that Jonathan talked about the Nova Scotia Graduate Scholarship, because that is a big thing, actually. And we were the only province without any of that kind of thing. I am going to look into your issue.
I will talk.
There was something funny about that. Okay, any other questions?
Just so I can conceptualize it, so the provost committee's primary responsibility is to basically look at the bigger picture in the face of these different silos in which budgets are controlled individually by the deans, and then present those options to the deans?
No. So let me just, so there's a dean and the vice provost students are on this committee with the other DPs. The kinds of issues that we look at are things that either have an impact, substantial impact in the operating budget for which I'm responsible, so I get snarky if somebody's over there spending away, right? But things that have an impact across the university, so IT systems would be a good example. A library spend would be a good example. Building an academic building is a good example because it has a huge impact. Are we using the classroom space we have now effectively? Are we going to build something we can pay for? We have a great track record at Dalhousie of building things and then letting them the scope creep. Not happening. Anyway, so that it's those bigger things, and they come to us through a vice president. So if a dean has a big scheme that they want, they come through me and I present it with them. So it says others. Oh, let's say others. So often we'll have standing room only. So if it was a student issue, there probably would be a couple of students there. There would be a couple of deans. There would be somebody from facilities management. So to bring the briefing notes and answer all the questions that we have to try and figure out if this is a good thing. Is this aligned with the academic mission? Is this good value for the money? And we turn away lots of stuff. And we accept some stuff. Yes?
I think my only worry with this is that it almost kind of corrupts the academic mission in the sense that it does become more predominantly financial. Like when everything becomes part of the academic mission, and therefore the academic mission itself isn't as kind of prominent as it once was. And that could just be perception, but it upsets me that a program decision or the decision around education would be affected mostly by, or even partly by, well, we needed all this money elsewhere to do this or to do this.
Well, I would say that that's exactly the scenario we're trying to move away from, where those financial decisions were made without any input from the academic. So a strictly academic issue should never come to the provost committee. It should be dealt with entirely in the faculty or in Senate in particular. So, there are examples where we had some financial pressures from some other activities that have had an impact or a cut on budgets. And so this is really a means to try and get away from that, to make sure that we're actually thinking about when we look at the operating budget, we're also looking at the capital plans so that we know what impact of those in a multi-year way, which we've never done before. We've always just tried to balance the budget. Every time we come here, the budget balance. But we need to be making sure that the strategic plan and the capital plans and the faculty plans they're not stealing from the faculty plans, right? So, and that's why I think that everybody knowing what we're doing, I will be reporting at every Senate meeting what we've been doing, what's going on. I'm more than happy to come here a couple of times. It's not raining, and actually, talk about it again. And we will be doing a big review in March on both of these issues, because just because other people do this doesn't mean it's necessarily a great fit for Dal. So I think we just have to be really vigilant about it. And I think I can count on all of you. Yes?
I have kind of a two-part question. The first being, how do you think this new model will impact areas of student life that perhaps aren't as related to academics? So maybe the librarians and deans and things won't be as involved with something like student wellness or recreation, where maybe the VPX or someone like that would be someone better to speak to about it. And secondly, do you think there would be a possibility to create another direct report to the vice provost, student affairs, being the director of varsity athletics?
Are they there? They are.
I
just didn't list them. Anybody anybody who currently reports.
But do they not direct to the executive director? Like?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a different question. Just send me an email on that. Honestly, they only came over a week or so ago. I don't know all the nuances of that. So that's a reasonable question, and we'll ask Anne.
Okay.
But just send me an email on that. Sorry. The first one, I think that that's about why they would want to be in the academic part. Of course, there are lots of things in the academic world that don't affect anything else either. But where there is an overlap, that's where we want to make sure that we've got opinions on that table before these decisions are made. So, you know, the associate vice president academic isn't really going to get involved with whether we have varsity teams or whether we have an arena or, you know, stuff like that. So.
But do you think it will be more negatively impacted now that they won't be, that person won't be directly, I guess?
No, because they're at the provost committee where those.
To the president though, sorry. So the president would have more information about, say, agreements with the province about, say, the new arena.
Right.
And now the provost wouldn't necessarily have any information.
It's possible. She sometimes falls asleep in meetings. But President answered that, I thought, quite well last night, saying actually his role has changed so much that having another direct report, having that direct report means that he's done it, he's had a conversation, but they haven't had that person hasn't had a conversation with where the decisions are being made. And so it's better to get everybody on side and everybody at the same level of awareness of what these issues are. And that will be, there's two things I'll be watching for. One is whether or not that link was important, and the other is whether or not at the higher level that the student voice is still being heard. Now, as you can tell, I'm not a shy or shrinking violet, but but we have to watch for that, and we have to make sure that that happens. And so those would be, I think, important things to watch for.
Are there any more questions for Karen?
Okay, great. Thanks for your attention. And just take a look, read through. You can send me emails. Okay? And anybody who wants to get an email.
Now, I guess it was a couple of hours ago that I asked if anyone wanted to care to be the motion that open motions to councillors perhaps couldn't speak. I don't know if I solicit volunteers for this week. This was tabled for last council meeting. It concerned what council's obligations would be in terms of speaking for this chair. Now, if I don't believe that anyone has taken care of that motion.
So are there any, this might maybe I'll solicit any volunteers, simply because I couldn't do so in the first instance. And if there's no one to volunteer, then it'll be able until next meeting, Eric.
Which Rams is just outside the door. Did you already talk to him?
Pardon?
Rams is, sorry.
He said he couldn't speak to Ed.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry?
Rams was just outside of the room when you said that. I just wanted to make sure that he had kind of had weighed in.
Okay, okay.
He didn't take it.
Yeah, he said that he would do everyone else but A.
That's right, yeah, that's what I understand. Okay, like I don't know if Rams was planning on that. He wasn't here last week, so, yeah. So Rams, there was an issue at the beginning of the meeting, I guess, I wanted to ask if there were any volunteers to take care of a 9A business. This would have concerned an obligation, a potential obligation of councillors to submit written reports to the chair for every meeting. So at this point, I'm soliciting volunteers if anyone would like to take care of the motion. And if there are no such volunteers, then I would simply be able to run this meeting. John.
So point of order, are we supposed to do appointments?
Yeah.
You're quite right. No, Thanks. Thank you, John. All right.
Okay, so ignore what I just said, and let's go to the appointment of the CRO. And so this is an appointment that council must make by November 1st. It's the CRO, and it's at least 4 non-council members of the elections committee. They have to settle anything in a fairly short time frame by November 1st. That would be a little more than a week's time. They have to administer the elections policy. It's quite a lengthy document. It should be reviewed by anyone who's it should have been reviewed by anyone who's been doing the CRO. Some of the responsibilities include setting the election dates, finalizing the candidates, constructing ballot, mediating on the rules, running debates, managing negotiations, deciding between the winners. If past elections are any indication, then someone may have to be, jump into that tiger suit and, run around campus. I know some of this was here done that like 6 years ago. I'm talking about myself. That's what I hope it dry It's not a fun thing. So at this point, I'll solicit the nomination for the DSU.
Nominating committee has interviewed the interested candidate, and we are happy to announce that Stephen ran the candidate nominating committee.
So I'm sure you got it. So do I set up this first, or do I? I'm pretty sure that.
A nominating committee nomination is just like any other nomination.
Yeah, so I think I still did the nominations for the position. So are there any other nominations for the position of chief recruiting officer? I have are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations for the chief recruiting officer? Okay, I'll invite you to give a speech concerning your qualifications.
So I'm Dylan Wright, for those of you that don't know. Some of you probably know me from the election committee last year. We did have some problems. It wasn't as smooth sailing as we hope to see this year. A lot of it had to do with the appointment process and things that went awry along the way. It led to a very short planning time. We hope to avoid that this year and avoid a lot of the problems that we had. One of the biggest problems or side effects of that was the voter turnout, which was horrible. That will be my first foremost goal. Should be manageable with this amount of time for planning. To take sort of initiatives to get students involved in the process and get them in the know on the candidates. I don't know if you guys have questions. Go for too long. I know you've been here for a while.
Are there any questions, Dylan? Yes, ma'am.
Are you ready to start working for the goal?
No, more ready. Get your office.
Any more questions for Dylan? Everyone understands that this is a big decision, right? Have I stated something, or no? Okay. Did I see a hand or?
I'm just wondering what he thinks the single hardest part of the process is going to be.
Okay. So last year we had a lot of problems, as you know, William, with the administration of the rules. A lot of candidates weren't clear on them. Because of this, we actually ended up giving out fines, which I would like to completely avoid. I don't think it should be necessary, as long as everyone's clear on the rules. Some of it was in the writing of the actual rules. I think I have way more time this year to work through those and see that everything is crystal clear for candidates. Get things set up before that. The single biggest thing, again, I would go to the voter turnout. I think it's the most important goal. I don't think it's a strong opinion from students or the youth. But I think you have to have a fair and honest election before you can focus on. 2 steps. 2 steps.
How do you plan on increasing voting?
Well, last year, as I mentioned in the interview, we had a lot of problems getting out posters. And I think we had 2 poster areas where all of the candidates were advertised. So I don't know how it was fair for students to actually be expected to know what was going on. I'd like to work with the university to find more spaces to make these apparent for students. Along with that, just making voting more available. We had 1 computer last year, 1 old laptop that the DSU was kicking around sitting in the lobby last year. It was ineffective. Even standing there, I had students that were fed up waiting because it took 1 person 10 minutes to vote, and they walked away. Like, the university has lots of resources that if we plan ahead, we can book and borrow. As well, I've been told we have a budget that has not been touched in recent years, so I'd like to use that in advertising for sure.
I was just wondering what your plans are for Sexton in terms of voter turnout.
Yeah, definitely. So of those 2 posters, I don't think any of them were on Sexton campus. We had 1 debate. It wasn't too well received. I actually didn't make that one, but I'm told it wasn't a great success. Again, it's these general things that come out before the election and in planning. Social media campaign should be stronger. I think we'll have time for that. Again, a lot of it is there just wasn't time, even if we planned as well as absolutely well as possible last year. We didn't have time. Getting started now, I think there'll be plenty of time before the debate or before the election to increase the awareness of students.
Just 2 quick questions. So you said you're going to review the policy of what needs to be changed from last year as well. So have you ever done before last year? Have you done stuff like on policies and this kind of work before?
Well, I studied political science and economics. But
Pardon me?
I studied political science and economics. But
Okay.
as far as hands-on policy graphic drawing, no, I haven't had much experience in that. I've worked in administration and things, but not really.
Okay.
Each year, the CRO draws their own rules, right? So every year it's reworked. There are recommendations. I know books of each CRO files a report at the end of the year. So I'll definitely be reviewing those before starting.
Are there any further questions for Bill? We'll see as there is only 1 candidate for the position, then it's going to announce the violation of the new CRO. Bill? Are there any nominations for non-council member positions on the elections committee? I understand that you've only had about 2 days to try to find people, so don't worry. If there's no one to be appointed today, then they'll simply be tabled until the next meeting, during which time you'll be able to ask around your friends or other people if they're interested in becoming members of the elections committee. Those positions are paid at and you can tell them that they'll be able to go on a tiger series so that might be something interested in. So I have that 3 times. So are there any nominations for us? Yes.
I want to nominate myself.
Only members of council can nominate. Thank you. Perfect. Are there any further nominations for the non-council member positions on the elections committee? Are there any further nominations? Yes.
Do these have to be done before November 1st?
That is what the Constitution says.
Is that just the election of the CRO position, or is that the committee?
Sorry.
It's, no, it's a good question. So, pursuant to bylaw 8, section 4. So, the elections committee must be composed of students that are members of the union, none of whom shall be council of the union. The elections committee shall be appointed by council before November 1st in any year.
So, can you propose it after that at the next council meeting?
I'm not sure how we would proceed if there were no further nominations. I don't know if we can compel anyone to be a member of the committee that they want to be. That's the only reason they made the table. And so if you're worried that the councilors can have enough time to consult their constituents, then you can certainly raise that issue with the chair, because the council was to distribute until Monday. So I guess no one's fault of mine that you get up until Monday. Are there any further nominations for the non-council member positions on the elections committee? Any further nominations? Yes.
So if we were to question that from the chair, would that give more time to find these other members to be part of this?
I wouldn't be holding people hostage to force nominations. So if there are no nominations, then it's simply be doing until the next meeting. And yes, it's right to point out that it would be controversial to the Constitution. I'd only point out that last year there was a far worse situation. in my defense. So for the third time, are there any further nominations for non-council member positions on the elections committee? Okay. At this time, I'll ask Shaila just to short speech outlining your interest in your qualifications.
Hello everyone, I'm Shaila Jamal. I'm first year master planning student, and I'm from Bangladesh. So before coming here, I was worked in the United Nations Development Program, Bangladesh, as a program coordinator, where I was supposed to work on the promotion and campaigning of the events, and especially the projects. And I was very good at the making the brochures, communication materials, and distribute them. And before that, before United Nations, I worked as on a US-based consulting firm in Bangladesh for 2.5 years, where I also worked as an event manager, event coordinator, and now I'm here. And I heard from him that the previous election was disaster and there was so less participants we got. And so, like in Bangladesh, this election is like a festival. Everyone wants to participate. Everyone wants to give his opinion and that. But here, this is really missing, I think. So I think if I become a member, so maybe I can make a difference. And maybe I try to make people more interested to participate here. And as I'm a planning student, I'm good at it. So I think I believe I can. and right now I am involved in the Share the Road Nova Scotia program as a volunteer, also in the program assistant. So there we are, campaigning about the road safety and road safety awareness and people about the things. So I think I can do a good thing about the election on marketing and promotion. So that's it. Thank you.
No questions for Shaila? All right, seeing as how there are only one candidate for the position, I'm ready to pass the challenge to the elections. Okay. So, time, try to draw this address in the elections committee and give the rating. Take off. Oh, you're right. I look ready. Okay.
Yes. So say we do find candidates, do we have, is there a certain time that we have to let you know, or can we string them up in the next week?
That's right. Everyone's on notice that that this will be a discussion item or voting item at the next. So, yeah. And I should note this is a week, so don't feel constrained if you know that there are things that maybe want to take someone else forward. There's theoretically no limit on how many counselors can be there. They're non-counselors. Okay. So let's move on to the office. Maybe I'll let Mulu explain.
So currently the Board of Operations member, there are 2 vacant positions because the previous member who are operating from the last year, after summer they're not involved. So for those 2 positions, we seek out nomination and go in the interview process. And I'm glad to have, I think we have 2 qualified candidates, Adrian Lake and Joe Marciaro. And I am happy to represent them to the council for council approval.
And the last name, sorry?
Joe Marciaro.
Oh, Joe. How do you spell that?
MERSTREAU.
NERSTREA. And you accept the nomination?
Yes.
So these are 2. No, you're selling the nominating at this point. Okay. And so these 2 positions they're both non-counselor positions, non-executive. So perhaps like they're the state qualifications, so to speak. So why don't you them and then I'll see if there's any for it. Do you have 2 nominations?
I've stated it, yeah. Adrian Lake and Joe Marciaro.
Adrian Lake. And Adrian, you accept the nomination? Yes. Okay. Are there any further nominations for positions on the board of operations? Any further nominations? Any further nominations for the non-executive position on the board of operations? Okay. I'll invite the candidates in alphabetical order to give a short speech on their interests and qualifications. So that means Adrian is up first.
So, well, I'll try to keep it really short. I have a cold, I'm actually not feeling too well. I'm a JD MBA student. I'm currently in my 3rd year of 4. I've served on a couple other boards before, in nonprofit sectors as well as in some union environments. I think that I have enough qualifications and experience to really make a meaningful change. And I welcome questions because I think probably more important than talking. Do you have any questions?
Yes,
What was your undergraduate degree?
My undergraduate degree was in arts.
Was it here done?
No, it wasn't. It was missing.
Which one did you have here?
Actually, we got the council package, but there is no point regarding this thing.
It was added to the agenda. Moving a motion to add it to the agenda and receive the 2/3 of consent councilors. Eric.
I was just wondering what your other union experience was.
I was a CRO for the St. Mary's Student Union, and as well I participated.
William.
What year were you the CRO for?
It was a while ago.
Not the last couple of years?
It would have been maybe like 8.
Okay.
Yes.
What made you want to get involved in the board of operations at this union?
I think it's probably a good mix between both the law that I'm taking as well as the finance side. And so I feel that kind of being able to wear both hats will be important in that position. And the reason I decided to come to the DSU is because I just felt that I should probably contribute a little bit to the community here. That's why I decided to join.
Any further questions for Adrian? you very much.
All right. I just want to first thank everybody for having me here tonight, and thank the election committee for your nomination. I have a pretty extensive background in this. I was vice president of finance for the Graduate Student Union at Memorial University. So I was the chair of the finance committee there, the health and dental committee, and the facilities committee. We ran a restaurant and a residence. So I'm really familiar with a lot of kind of the areas that this board does. In combination, I am an MBA student, so I know kind of the financial aspects of it as well. And I've been involved in student politics for a while, so I just felt this was a good chance to kind of take my unique experience that I had at Memorial University and then apply it here and really give back to the students and really improve students' lives, academically, financially, and socially. So I'll just open it up to the floor for any questions.
Yes, Michael. Yep.
Have you ever done anything like sat on any boards on that outside of the student dynamic?
So on any boards outside of the student? Yeah.
Anything outside of a student dynamic in like a board, been part of a board or anything like that?
Yeah. I've been on a few boards, some related to environmental, because that's what my last degree was on, and then another one that was related to getting seniors active, both mentally and physically.
Any further questions for Joe? No more questions for Joe? Okay, seeing as how there are two positions in the candidates, I'm going to announce two candidates as the new members of the Board of Operations. Now we can move on to executive business. And so usually we're sitting next to each other and you scroll up and down, so I don't know if I should bring the laptop over or what you want to do here.
I can move over there.
Okay.
Alright, folks. I'm cognizant of time, so hopefully we'll do it in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So I'll be, yes, I'm going to know that we shut down at 9:30. Just want to say some important points here. So investments, trans policy statement. Please you can make this public, so I can put it on the website as well as right now it's actually in the hands of the Board of Operations and will be discussed at the next meeting. We're going to look at the financial implications for financing. How occurred? Past 16, 17. There were close to black comments that I don't know if that actually didn't come through. We're already looking at how. There's a central rally over that. Volunteer fair happened, council orientation happened. Actually, we'll be sending out stuff summary of the council orientation discussions, including goals that we discussed and certain points that people wanted to raise. Like mentioning the ombudsperson campaign, so frustrated about this. Board issue at the Student Experience Committee. Policy stuff, yeah. To be less limited and more restorative. Bog update, I think that's actually the report that was presented. And press release is working on, a movie press release to be working on by the graphic designer in view of our policy communications policy manager. Let me get to that in a second. Policy review. We're on track for a long policy transformation policies today. Elections policy has to be passed in the meeting, along with community rules and procedures and facilities. We have reduced staff capacity. This is very important. Communications with policy managers on medical leave until November 7th. So we have reduced capacity to follow up on our press releases and our policy, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm actually going to hire a policy commissioner or projects commissioner the next week. So if you have anybody who's interested in that,
please put it to dsu.ca/jobs because I need all the help I can get with these. So. Policy and research coordinator hiring. We're currently creating a short list of applicants for a policy and research coordinator. They'll be meeting on tomorrow and Tuesday essentially. This is also important. If you go to dsu.ca/RFP, you'll notice a request for proposal plan on there. So even the basic stuff, there's space down there, right? Like travel cuts. So I already announced it last meeting, but that's up for for new organizations / societies to propose that space. If there's anybody you feel that should be there, please let us know in an email or just send them the RFP directly and we can make a business plan on that. So really, I've got too much to party so far. So.
Yes, yes. I'm just confused with travel cuts looking for proposals.
Oh, sorry, I just referred to the travel cuts space. So that's okay. Sorry, I just read it. Everybody knows it. And the deadline is October 21st, so that's 1 more week. So please download it and send to people that you know. Legal agreements for November. Looking inside an MOU with Halifax to bolster a volunteer program. GM tomorrow night. Go up. Discussing divestment, the election decision, and discussing legislation policy. Should there be a structure around that? So that's should it be centralized or should we continue with the decentralized format? Council Chair increase of the Board of Operations approved the increase of compensation for the Council Chair, Council Secretary, and Board of Operations Chair. And so now their part-time positions about $1,000 Chair. So that could be $50 a month. $750 for the Bob Secretary and Council Chair. And the job description is amended to reflect this change. I've increased it. Renos, we might be the need for project management, so it's like it's additional cost to have to incur the project, fortunately, but it's needed like somebody there to make sure little details aren't missed, that actually help drive the project budget. Right now, the construction budget we've been working on, but now once we actually start construction, there's all kinds of little things that will come up, so that kind of budget is as well. One thing I'd like to mention is that tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there'll be a meeting with Type 1 and Weak societies around the Society Hub space. Everyone has already notified about that. I don't know if DSU was contacted or Dev's, but
What information? What was that date and time again?
Thursday, sorry, tomorrow at 2 p.m. in room 318, yes.
Oh, if everyone's were notified?
Yes. Yes. So please, that's for residents for the society as well. Again, there's something last time, but it's nice to have everybody in the room together, right? So everybody sees. I really need council's help with this. Honestly, this is a aspect where I need direction because there are 12 private offices in the Society Hub, so I'm looking for council's direction on how these spaces should be allocated. We went through like a consultation process last year, but really like we're starting from scratch. We have a feedback from our Society Hub survey that we did from feedback from about 60, 70 societies, including Type 3s and Type 2s. So each of them, had different needs for what they wanted in Society Hub. So we'll take a look at that. So a lot of them said, we don't need office space. That's, we just need storage so we can accommodate them. But it's going to be a pretty difficult process to decide. Okay, we're looking at the extended learning management system. Doug already talked about that summer past survey. The survey results were released. I think you can publish online. So if you have any critiques on this, please let me know. Also to get look at the contract for the summer U pass and the senior U pass to see what students can sign up enough. So, women's mission with Halifax, the city $5,000 money to get some cash with the for this. Grand House also trying to get cash with the for this, 60,000 with down. Concerns about safe in the Halifax and stuff like that for governors, especially for time for training the Halifax. Also, South House. That South House also we trying to secure the funding for the accessibility ramp, but no such luck yet. But we'll keep trying.
Are there any questions for Rent? I understand it's given time constraints, not exactly the amount of time that you want, but we still have the opportunity for questions.
You can always email me. That's what I
So, with your project manager position, I actually looked at the website. It wasn't actually posted, what I could tell.
Oh, the commissioner position?
Yeah, your report said check it out. I checked it out.
Yes, sir.
And William and then Joe.
Just with the honorarium, Chris, it makes sense, but I'm just wondering, it definitely did need to go through the boss. It didn't have to come before council, because isn't that stuff defined in the policy or something?
It doesn't need to go through council, but when Bob's taking the final decision on it, again, if council wants to contest that decision, I think Bob's
Well, it has that, I just want to make sure that the law is correct.
I wish Bob's here, because Bob's would be the appropriate party to I can do this.
Joe?
I haven't seen in any of your reports about food options on section.
Yes, very true, Joe. So we tried to organize that meeting with the Director of Ancillary Services, Heather Sutherland. That meeting was, I guess, I didn't receive a response to it, so I'll follow up with her next week about that.
Any further? Yes, sir.
More of a point of order. I was wondering if council wanted to just skip through exec reports so we could have time to talk about elections, since we only have 15 minutes.
So we'll consider that motion after all questions, after Rand has answered all the questions. Yes. So are there any further questions, Rand? Okay, thank you, Rand. So Aaron, you basically want to table all exec reports that you're saying?
I guess I just, I mean, it was like 15 minutes. I feel like, but if you want to do otherwise.
Okay, does that motion have a second? Rand? What does everyone else think? Would they rather hear from Jacqueline and Mahou, or would they rather, yes, Hannah?
I would like to hear from Jacqueline. We didn't receive a report.
Hannah?
What?
Caitlin, sorry.
I was just going to say, unless any of the exec have pressing business, we should move on to elections.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote whether or not to table the remaining exec reports. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Please keep your hands raised. Okay, all those opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their abstentions or dissents noted in the minutes? Okay, let's move on then.
I guess it's the box score at this time. So
I don't know why I just kicked you out of my chair to 0 again. This was one of the reports that was circulated. It must have been about 15 minutes before the council meeting.
Oh, the board caucus report.
The board caucus report, yeah. Oh, sorry, did I say Bob? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but
board caucus. Yeah.
Is it?
I guess, does anyone have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand. I would understand if no one has had the chance to read them because we sent out 15 minutes beforehand. But I mean, council still have the opportunity to ask any questions of Rand or Rebecca or Jonah. The activities of.
Point of information.
Yes, sure.
So, I'm sorry, I just lost. So how do we ask questions if we haven't read the report?
You're quite right. The report was only received today and circulated a few minutes ago. It's a report that's required to be sent to council, so there's no move per se, it's been accepted, it's simply circulated after it's received. Right.
Will there be a need for a motion to table this report and have it come up on the agenda for the next meeting so you have time to read it and ask questions there?
What is the report about?
The meeting that happened last night. So we couldn't get 48 hours notice. The meeting happened last night.
Well,
we don't need to vote on table anything, we'll just discuss next week. So is there any, given that there are any questions? Yes,
I just want, it's not a question, but could you send me that because I don't think I was
right.
on the list at that point.
I apologize again for that. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so no, seeing that there are no questions concerning the board, move on to.
So everyone should have received that report and email Justin.
Yes.
At 5:57.
Yeah. So half an hour before.
Okay. So, given the time constraints, given that normally I would request volunteers to take urgent motions without the council's present speakers at the beginning of the meeting, I think we'll simply have to table 9A until the next meeting concerning council's obligations in terms of submitting everything to the council. At this point, Jeff is here to speak to 90 policies being successful, but I guess my understanding was to table that until the next meeting.
That's going to table the next meeting because the different groups that we've been talking with still want things to keep going, and at the last academic external meeting, people wanted to take control of it. So yeah.
So next meeting.
Yeah, at least the next meeting.
Okay. So this is voting to table our second. Michael, is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, so we're going to table until the next meeting. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And so Jacqueline is also here to speak to see, but it was also my understanding that you noticed it on Rand's behalf. So I understand that you just want Rand to speak with. And that applies to the Commissioner Committee, Facility Officer, Union Policies.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So, given that we have 10 minutes, I don't know how we can do this.
Let's get into high gear.
All right.
Point of information.
Yes, sure.
It's just a friendly question. Do you think 12 minutes is enough for the committee policy, for all the policies to be?
No, not at all. Well, my objective for today is that at least we can get done, Commissioner, and have a discussion on the election, give the update that boss is supposed to give. Is that clear? Or?
Can I have my motion discussed as well?
So it's open to any member of council to allocate time as they see fit. It's not just the carrier who can table things. You know.
Point of information, is the commissioner policy or anything part of it time sensitive?
Yes.
What is the timeline?
Only because we've been in violation of policy since forever, and once we pass it today, we can really put our strengths into getting commissioners hired, like the street team, and well, the commissioners that need to hire.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
This commissioner policy, I don't know how detailed council went through this last meeting at all. But as I said, I got attention to some minor changes that were suggested to me by a person that was not here tonight. Essentially, those are around item number 7. So now in this clause right here, so each commissioner shall be interviewed by the incoming president or vice president and at least 2 other individuals who the hiring executive member deems appropriate. So suggested members of the appointment committee may include but are not limited to executive, staff, and council members. So the recommendation that I received was to change this to suggested members of the appointment committee shall include at least 1 member of the executive, staff, and council members. So what that means essentially, if you're having a committee of at least 2 people, one of them has to be executive member, staff member, or council member, like one of those 3. So again, that's open for discussion. We can add it to either language here, or council can care about that either.
This has been noticed for voting. I'm sure that's
Yes, but you still have a chance to discuss it one last time before it gets approved. So in that discussion, you could still propose amendments to it. Right?
well, if it's not tabled, is what I'm saying, that it's void.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, so, yes, John.
So, I think the discussion when we had the when the commissioner's policy was being discussed, the point that was raised was if the commissioners could be hired through the nominating committee and it wasn't something, we could change something in this. Like, I mean, if the interview process and the hiring can be done through the nominating committee. That was the discussion that happened last time. So what was the thoughts around that?
The thoughts around that is that it would be too bureaucratic for just regular small commissioner positions, because there may be anywhere from, in a given year, from 6 to 24 commissioners, like based on just need for executives. That would make it essential for the nominating committee to get people organized to interview them. I mean, you could still want to write that in, but that was the thought behind that.
So this is the time to suggest amendments or make criticisms, comments, express concerns, ask questions. Yes, Shirley.
One thing I kind of want to make clear. If we accept this right now as it is, like make minor changes to it, we can always change it again. We just want to work with the current policy.
Exactly. Cool. So instead of being 100% out of order, we'll be maybe 98% in order, actually. So
awesome.
Yes, Hannah.
I think I just missed your point about 7. So right now, it's not changed. What you were talking about, it being changed as a good thing.
Yeah, I was busy then write it in right now, because the commissioner, sorry, the counselor told me this, well, let me write that, it's like right before the council meeting, so that occurred to them.
So are you proposing an amendment at this point?
Yes.
That's not reflected here?
So instead of changing this word to shall, so right now, the executive member may have an executive, staff, or council member of the committee, or anybody else really. It doesn't even specify that it has to be a union member. So.
So this word, shall? Okay. So the discussion at this point is limited really to that amendment?
Can you take out but not limited to?
Yeah.
Sorry, the motion is a second.
Sure.
Hannah, yeah. So what do you want to do then? Hannah?
Oh, take out but not limited to. Shall include.
Okay, so does that mean?
So I'm basically we have to make it grammatical.
Exactly. So that we don't need to.
And the other change was or, so instead of and or, end of the sentence.
So do you want to say that that's one amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what you with the second?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, is there any discussion on? Yes.
I'm just curious to whether the intent is that both of these other people are council members or staff members or executive, or just one of them?
Just one. So yeah, you're right. So maybe suggestion that the committee shall include at least one executive.
In the interest of time, I guess I would consider that that's an amendment. I'll say that's part of the amendment.
Yeah. So I would like to think, like, see what other counselors think on making both of them, because I don't really know why we have someone who's not staff or on the council or on the executive all of a sudden hire a commissioner. Like, what knowledge do they have to hire a commissioner?
I'm just saying that like a past commissioner may have valuable input even if they weren't a counselor.
So maybe add that.
It's just, I guess we're making this a singular.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on that? Yeah. Yeah, on the amendment. Okay, so is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll vote whether or not to adopt the amendment. We understand we understand like this state of the fact of this amendment.
Does this make sense to folks?
Okay, so seeing as how there's no further discussion vote on the amendment, all those in favor, please raise their hand. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions over the minutes? Okay, what's next?
The other amendment was that all commissioner appointments must be announced to the council. Oh yeah, I guess we have to announce it, but just put it in the policy.
So where do you want that?
Could be an additional clause or an addition to clause number 7. Is that nice one?
When?
At the first council meeting after hire.
Does that motion have a second? John? Is there any discussion on that?
Does that make sense?
Nothing to call into question.
On the amendment? Sure. Okay, so we understand the effects amendment. And so we'll move to vote on the amendment. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Is there anything else?
No.
Okay. Is there any other discussions or any future policy? Yes, Hannah.
I just have a question about point 2. So the commissioners, is it correct that they're now changing to like a project by project basis rather than like annual basis? Is that a true thing?
It's may or may not be. I mean, it's flexible like that because the person that I would hope to hire for this policy thing will certainly continue to help you with other projects as well. It's either or. Anyway, like for example, the open foster person, project based, but everything else will be year long.
Okay, so would you always have like a recommendation and consultation with outgoing executives?
If when possible.
Okay.
Any further? Yes.
I'm not sure. Are commissioners DAL students?
Yes, exactly. I think that says that. Our student volunteers. So we specify our DAL student or members of the union.
Is that what you're going to do? I'm putting you on the spot. You don't
I
know.
think we'll look at it.
I'll motion to amend.
Like that?
Yeah.
Or members of the union?
Yeah, members of the union.
What would you like to do? I'm doing this with that.
Commissioners are members of the union.
So let's say our volunteers.
Members of the union could be honorary members as well, right? Yeah. Yeah, so I would put it as DAL student.
DAL as a student?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? John, any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dalhousie student.
No.
No, it's always specified Dalhousie slash Kings.
Exactly, so it says Dalhousie/Kings. So if you want Dalhousie/Kings in there, it's up to you.
So yeah, in the interest of time, we'll make it a subject. We'll just make it a subject to the approval of the new representative.
I do not understand why we are rushing so much because I really need time to think of this. I think I'm being forced to think it, like, make this thing really fast. Okay, so commissioners, so are commissioners, King students allowed to be hired as commissioners as well?
Currently, no.
Then why are we discussing about Dalhousie/Kings? Like, are King students eligible to be a commissioner?
If there's also DAL students, and most King students, ipso facto, are DAL students.
Yeah. Most of them just take DAL courses, right? Like, so that.
Yeah. I don't want to rush anyone. I should say, like, I won't be picking anyone out here until 9:37, unless there's a motion to extend. Someone else can pick us out here at 9:30, but it won't be me.
Yeah. Yeah, no feedback. We'll get it back.
So is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, move to vote to adopt the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Would anyone like to dissent or abstention for the amendments? Okay. Any further amendments or suggestions, comments, questions about Commissioner policy? Yes or no? Okay. So seeing as there are no further concerns, questions, comments, suggested amendments, criticisms to the policy, the students have had, counselors have had at least 2 months of meetings to take a look at this. This particular version is a version that existed since the last company meeting, except for those amendments that we just done. So I think we've all had the opportunity to review them. But seeing as there's no further debate, we'll vote on whether to adopt the policy as a whole. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would anybody like to abstentions voted in the minutes?
Yes.
Jamel and Hannah? Okay. All right. Committee policy. That is a definite time, so that's in order. This motion has a second. Aaron, until we get to that.
Badass like that.
Or we adjourn.
That's really dangerous.
So we get kicked out or we adjourn, but that's of course that.
So does it prefer that we adjourn after a short period of time? Always not in you can post.
Adjourn at 10 or 10:30.
Is that the piece of the yes,
We'll be kicked out before then, so.
Is it yes?
Just for this, I would actually say 9:45. That's
9:45.
because people expect to do 1:30. I don't want to keep them in. 9:45.
Who seconded that? It was Eric. Is that fine? Any other suggestions? 9:45. Okay. So you know, all those in favor of adjourning at 9:45. Peter has it. All those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried today. Is there anyone like to dissent or abstention to the minutes? All right, Commissioner, committee policy.
All right.
So whenever we
Committee policy.
It's a debate one.
Motion to
Motion to table. Motion to table policy because it is so big and so important.
Okay, I'll just David, you're the seconder of the. Is there any discussion on that?
Question?
Yeah.
Call the question.
Oh, okay. Listen to the next meeting. Opposed? Abstentions?
And you can do this before, right? You can table all of the motions you can make.
Yes, all motions except for election.
Facilities. Yes, you said.
Yes, you
want to second. Is anyone really want to start this one?
I have 2 points. One, I think we need 2/3 majority to actually extend the meeting time. Second thing is, I don't think we're going to have quorum in about 4 minutes.
You've raised a very valid point of order, and so the hold on. Postpone adjournment while a question pending requires a majority.
Quorum is 20, so we have.
16.
And hold on.
We're at 20.
We have 20 right now.
It's currently, there's no extra decision
it's
anymore.
just discussion.
There's no extra decision, yeah. It's just pure discussion, so I mean,
No, quorum is 20, and we have quorum right now.
Perfect.
Yeah, so the motion on the floor was to table union rules and facility policies for the next meeting. It was seconded by, I recognize as a second, Caitlin. So is there any further discussion on that?
Okay, seeing none, to vote whether to table
These two policies for the next meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Do we have any other extensions of the minutes? Okay.
We'll move to a discussion, just a discussion
of the proposed amendments to law.
So I'll begin with the update from Board of Operations. I think the easiest thing would be send you folks the minutes from that discussion, but in lieu of that, I'll summarize it as best as I can. So the after the conversation was, I guess, the recommendation of the Board of Operations to have a subcommittee of the Board of Operations handle the selection process for the DPFO. Now, again, it's not a process by which one candidate is selected, but it's a process by which a list of abilities are assessed via questions. So these abilities were identified using information and questions drafted from our general manager and controller. So things like ability to read a budget, ability to read a bank reconciliation, ability to do other financial related things. So there are about 6 criteria or 6 abilities there. And now the actual questions that assess these abilities, that's up for discussion, and the Board of Operations recommended that they be made each year in consultation with the GM and the controller. The VP Finance would be the one who is chairing this subcommittee, consisting of 2 other Board of Operations members, or even 1 council member or non-council member, that's council's discretion. And this committee would then essentially take in applications for anybody interested in the DPFO position, interview them perhaps over the nominating period during elections, and then basically on the elections website, it'll basically say this person has yes ability, yes, in all 6 categories, and that will be true for each candidate who wishes to run for Board of Operations, for DPFO. And then they can run campaign like everybody else.
Do you want, yes,
Can we have it that these questions are both approved by the Board of Ops and by Council?
Okay.
Aaron?
I'll pass.
John?
Yeah, I'm all for this, except the part where they say, yes, they got the answer correct. Which the answer should be posted, but without passing judgment on whether they got that right. My opinion on it. Just post the answers.
Okay. Okay.
Could you repeat that, sir?
So the process he's proposing is this committee proposes questions and then posts the answers online, plus do they get the question right? What I'm saying is they should just post the answers.
Yeah. So instead of saying like, does this person have ability, let's say, do you have experience with budgets, do you have experience with bank organizations, and let those answers be posted online. That's what
I don't know if you wanted to go through new amendments or
did the council receive a copy of the before last council meeting?
by day, I think it was.
Okay. I'll refrain from doing so again. I don't put council twice. The other thing that I'm actually rather to address the points of discussion that were raised at the last election's policy discussion. I have about those some answers.
just wanted to get a speakers list.
Yeah, so basically, for example, the first thing that I have on this, and thanks to Chloe for sending these in advance so I could actually research them. Moving to paper ballot, a good idea. And I didn't quite understand that, but paper ballots replacing the electronic system or adding to it?
Yes, sir.
I brought that up, and I was suggesting replacing. I've sent a document to the chair outlining the arguments for why paper ballots are superior, which he'll send out later tonight or tomorrow. But I mean, if it, yeah.
So I mean, election policy must be started at this meeting. So within the time frame, we can perhaps discuss that.
Can we just kind of speak? Yeah, I really want to talk about it today. Or just in general, I feel like this policy is really, really important, and it's a shame we don't have more time to talk about it and reform it. I wonder, just an idea, is maybe convening a meeting outside of this, just welcome, like inviting all councillors to come, or like anyone who's interested to talk about election policy. And if people can't make it, that's one thing. But it's not like a formal ad hoc committee, but just like a meeting to discuss might be an idea.
I think Scarrow have the range of session.
Okay, I guess in the next 2 weeks. We only have 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah.
The next item would be deregulate any of the rules. Basically, the rule member records what is going on there. So, please go to that section. So, out of the provision that since even member understanding is not defined even in the Constitution, we limited it altogether. So there's no. This is not inclusive at all. For example, a member spending may not be allowed to reserve space in subs, in grants. It's extremely vague, and the term that means individual not entitled to the full benefits provided by the member of the union is doesn't make any. There's nothing to corroborate. I would actually motion to delete this entire section altogether.
Well, we're just.
I would like.
Yeah.
Feedback on that?
Yeah. Aaron. Sorry to speak so much. Yeah, I completely agree with that. The other thing about deregulation, though, I think was just some of the rules around social media and postering. So just allowing candidates to promote the election more, I think, would increase turnout. So allowing candidates to poster on their own, but also to like the election committee can't monitor Facebook, and should try.
I'm glad Aaron said that, because this happened when I was doing not studying. I came up with some amendments for the poster policy. So I have a list, I'll pass them in, but it's strike section 13B3, which limits posters to only display areas. This idea is to let candidates put up their own posters in addition to what the CRO would do themselves. The idea is that students putting up posters means students are more likely to know the election is happening, and therefore they're more likely to vote. So they're still constrained by rules around where you can put up posters, like bulletin boards, that kind of stuff. You can't just put up anywhere. But letting students put up more than just the CRO's designated areas improves the visibility of the election. And that I added 2 subclauses, which is based on what the King Student Union does around their poster policy, where the number of posters you can put up is limited. So you put up, say, a maximum of 50 posters per candidate, or 100, or whatever, but it is on the back of each poster you've got to put a number and keep track of where all your posters are, so they do have to be taken down before the election period finishes. But this deregulates a bit, vastly improves the visibility of the election, and it's just generally a good idea. So,
yes, I would definitely agree that it would increase visibility. But I know last year we were even threatened to receive fines from Dallas Security for sidewalk chalk. So, I think we definitely have to have more communication with the university on freedom of putting posters everywhere.
Yes, you are absolutely. Within the election policy, it says candidates must follow university policy. So you would put up on permitted areas such as public bulletin boards. And I have one other addition, which is not about posters, but in section 13C, candidates are permitted to use their personal social media platforms for campaigning purposes. Last year's election was ridiculous. You had to create your own Twitter in the period of the campaign, only for the campaign. And no one builds a Twitter following adequate to actually get the message out within the period of a campaign. So being able to use your own social media platform makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to pass these.
And then we can hear.
Just in relation to like post thing. I'm not super like knowledgeable about elections policy, but I think that would be like maybe there's a certain amount of posting you put up regarding your elections, but like you running for position, but maybe if I wanted to promote the election in general, I shouldn't be restrained in doing that. Of course, as long as it's all in universal policy. Yeah.
Aaron?
Another issue would be allowing campaigning during campaign period, which I know has been discussed. In my opinion, it would fit really well with going to paper ballots, but it would also like stop like any fraudulent behavior from people like collecting different passwords or like login names and different things. The other thing that I'm not sure we want to consider this year is slates, but it's a longer conversation. I don't really have time to go over things right now.
Given that there's a minute, I'll exercise my discretion to end the debate there and ask what we want to do about new businesses A and B. I assume that we're just going to table them. We don't need to, John.
Motion to table.
We only need to table them beyond the table in a minute.
Okay.
Is that okay with your motion roll, John?
It's already moved under notices.
That's correct. And so now I'll ask if there's any notices of motion. And so far we have tabled just for review. We have
all right. Come on. Page up. We have 9A, 9B, 9E, 9E, 9F, and then 10A. And so then I guess you want 10B as well. To motion, to notice the.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other further notices of motion? Are there any announcements? Caitlin?
The Housing and Social Sciences Society is having their fall ball on Friday at 7 p.m. at the Lord Nelson Hotel. Tickets are $20 if you get a table of 5 or $25 each. It's a great event for your societies to get a table, and all the proceeds go to Out of the Cold Halifax Shelter. Message me for tickets. We'll also be selling them all day tomorrow in the McCain building, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Aaron?
Yazan and I, as members at large, will be promoting the DSU AGM, other DSU events, and anything else you want us to promote tomorrow from 11 to 3 and maybe longer. Join us in the bottom of the sub.
I just wanted to apologize for firstly being late and secondly for not submitting a council report tonight. Part of the reason, a bit of an explanation for both of that, is that I was in an MOU meeting until around 8 o'clock this evening. There are a lot of updates coming along around that. I apologize. I feel bad I missed the SNS presentation, so I don't know what was covered. But at the next meeting, I hope to kind of add to that if it wasn't thorough enough. Or answer any questions.
So, since it's 9:46, then it's maybe need to announce this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming, guys. We'll get sexted in 1 month. November 9th.